All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Day Debate. We have a great debate tonight on evolution versus creation, and the debate prompt is going to be, does genetics support creation or evolution? We got SFT, Mr. Donny, we got Sam versus Dr. Ron and 1stAmender. Welcome back, guys who've been here before, and I believe this is Sam's first time. So everybody in the chat, give him a big welcome. And then we're going to get right into it after I ask you to like, share, subscribe to this channel and video. We have DebateCon 8 coming up. I'm going to put a little ad in the bottom corner here. Let's see if, or it's already there. It's already there. And we got our headliners right there for you to see. Andrew and D'Souza. I'm not sure if I say his name right. Z's. Okay, so for tonight, we're going to start with, I believe, Dr. Ron and 1stAmender, and how we have agreed to set up the format for tonight is 15-minute opening statements for each team. They'll kind of hopefully moderate themselves on the time there and we don't go over. And then 10-minute rebuttals after that, and then a 50-minute discussion. We'll do a 5-minute closing section. If at any point in time, you know, everybody in the chat's like, hey, everybody's talking too loud, blah, 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 can't hear anybody, they're talking over each other, we could break it up into 2-minute back and forth, and you guys decide who's going to take that 2 minutes, or I give you both like 2 minutes to respond or something. We haven't done 2v2 in a while. I believe actually it was with Don last time. That might have been the last one. Or no, 1stAmender, you might have been the last one. Either way, we're going to get right into it, guys. One more time, like the video, get your tickets to DebateCon 8, and without further ado, I will start the 15-minute timer whenever Ron and 1stAmender are ready.
Okay. I've never done a tag team debate like this before, so this is going to be interesting.
Starting.
Does genetics support creation or evolution? Evolution. There hasn't been a legitimate disagreement about this for about 150 years. I want to read a quote from the Amazon.com description of Darwin's Origin of Species. The Origin of Species attracted widespread interest upon its publication. As Darwin was an eminent scientist, his findings were taken seriously, and the evidence he presented generated scientific, philosophical, and religious discussion. Within 2 decades, there was widespread scientific agreement that evolution with a branching pattern of common descent had occurred. Now, Darwin didn't know about genetics. Gregor Mendel had started doing experiments on pea plants 3 years before Origin of Species was published, but Mendel didn't publish until 7 years after that. And obviously neither Mendel nor Darwin knew anything about DNA. That wouldn't be discovered until the 20th century. So although it's possible that there is or will be new data that shows that Darwin was wrong, any such discovery would be the start of a major scientific revolution. And again, it's possible that our opponents are at the vanguard of this revolution, and it just hasn't made the papers yet. But the odds are very much against them. There is now, and has been for over 150 years, an overwhelming consensus among biologists, which is to say, among the people who make their living studying this stuff, that evolution is true and all life forms on Earth are descended from a single common ancestor that lived 3 or 4 billion years ago. Now, it's possible that the scientific community has got this wrong. Ben Stein made a movie in 2008 called Expelled, where he argues that anyone who dares question the scientific orthodoxy gets, well, expelled, censored, silenced. So Stein argues that this is not a legitimate scientific consensus, but a manufactured one. This is quite literally a conspiracy theory. It's true that creationists aren't much respected in the biology community, but it's not because of prejudice. It's because creationists have an agenda, and that agenda is not to advance the cause of science or objective truth. It is to advance their religion. If you doubt this, all you have to do is search for Answers in Genesis Statement of Faith, and you will find a webpage that says this, quote, "In order to preserve the function and integrity of the Answers in Genesis ministry, in its mission to proclaim the absolute truth and authority of the scriptures and to provide a biblical role model to our employees and to the global body of Christ, the community and society at large, it is imperative that all persons employed by the AIG ministry and in any capacity or who serve as volunteers should abide by and agree to our statement of faith and conduct themselves accordingly." And then it goes on to list 46 bullet points that you have to accept without any evidence, or you can't keep your job at AIG. It is hard to imagine a more unscientific position than that. Now, this is just AIG, and AIG is not the only creationist organization out there, but their statement of faith is not at all unusual. The Creation Research Society has a similar statement of faith, which reads, quote, all members must subscribe to the following statement of belief. The Bible is the written word of God, and because it is inspired throughout, all its assertions are historically and scientifically true. The account of origins in Genesis is a factual presentation of simple historical truths. All basic types of living things, including man, were made by direct creative acts of God during the creation week described in Genesis. Whatever biological changes have occurred since creation week have accomplished only changes within the original created kinds. And it goes on to affirm Noah's Ark, Noah's flood, Adam and Eve, and so on. And if you go to the Institute for Creation Research, you will find 18 core principles, including the phenomenon of biological life did not develop by natural processes from inanimate systems, but was specifically and supernaturally created by the Creator. So it's not the biology community that expels people who dare to question the orthodoxy, it's the creationist community. There is a well-funded creationist industrial complex out there whose explicitly stated mission is not to advance science, but to advance the word of God. We know this because they say so. In science, it is in fact the exact opposite. No one is more celebrated in science than the person who overturns the old orthodoxy, because that is how science makes progress. But there's a catch. You have to do it with evidence that supports the hypothesis you are advancing, and creationists don't have any. So it's a little weird to be debating this because the creationists have already lost this war many times over. They lost 150 years ago when Origin of Species was published, and then they lost again when the Scopes Monkey trial in 1925, and then again in Kitzmiller versus Dover Area School District in 2004. They lost and continue to lose for a very simple reason. Their hypothesis that Genesis is the literal truth is violently at odds with the data. But as long as we're talking about the Bible, I'd like to mention my favorite Bible verse, which is Deuteronomy 18:22. When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken, but the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously. That is my favorite verse in the Bible because it is a full-throated endorsement of the scientific method. Make a prediction, do the experiment. If the result doesn't match the prediction, your hypothesis is wrong. If you look at the predictions made by biologists, they have a pretty good track record. Essentially, all of modern medicine comes out of biology, and modern medicine works pretty well, a hell of a lot better than faith healing. So where are the technological advances based on predictions made by creationists? There aren't any. None, zilch. There is not a single biotech startup based on creationism for the very simple reason that creationism is wrong. This is the difference between science and religion. Religion demands faith. Science demands contact with reality. Over to you, Amender.
All right, I got to go ahead and share a slide real quick. Give me 1 second to get my timing correct and everything. Hang tight.
So yeah, I'll pause the time here and be fair. We're at 6 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay. Share.
Give me, quick heads up as soon as you're ready. And then I'll start the time the moment you start screen sharing. Cool.
Okay, can you see it okay? And
yep, go
we're
ahead.
Good to start? Okay. All right. Scroll to my notes. Sorry, just give me a sec. Does genetics support creation or evolution? The simple answer is it's evolution. It is, in fact, one of the main cornerstones of biology. You cannot do any biological research without acknowledging evolution as a fact. Evolution is, in fact, one of the strongest lines of evidence for common ancestry in biology. Creation and evolution evidence standards aren't even in the same plane of reality. My opponent might say something along the lines that human and chimp Y chromosomes are too different from ancestry, when the reality is that the Y chromosome evolves rapidly and is in fact one of the fastest changing chromosomes in mammals. This divergence is exactly what evolutionary biology predicts. It is not a problem. The reason why it changes as fast as it does is because there is no recombination for most of its length. There is strong genetic drift, only small effective population sizes. Y chromosomes are not present in females and sensitive to random loss in lineage. There is repetitive sequence turnover, satellites, palindromes, repeats. Large amounts of repetitive DNA are structurally unstable, frequently expand, contract, duplicate, and delete. There is gene loss and rearrangement over time, losing genes over evolutionary time, or the degeneration process rearranging remains genes structurally among the Y chromosome. So, different does not mean it is unrelated. It simply means this region has evolved rapidly under known mechanisms. The human genome is more than just a Y chromosome. You use the Y chromosome, making roughly 0.9% to 2% of the total DNA of only male cells, leading to an incomplete data set, as well as a mischaracterization of the full scope. Creationists cherry pick Y chromosome entirely, ignoring the full genome-wide signal. Evolution is not inferred by a single chromosome. It is inferred by the whole genome alignment. We observe chromosomal fusion, otherwise known as human chromosome 2. Humans have 46 chromosomes, while other great apes, such as chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans, have 48. In our evolutionary past, 2 separate ape chromosomes fused end to end. That fusion created in what we now call the human chromosome 2. We can even see remnants of telomeric DNA, that's the ends of the DNA strands, between 2 fused chromosomes, and I have provided an NIH source for that. So humans did not gain or lose genes. We mostly just have them packaged differently. Independent experiments of yeast, bacteria, telomere separation, and recombination of identical DNA sequencing resulted in highly similar and functional surviving yeast bacteria. You can even see the proof right there in the picture. When you observe the entire genome, humans and chimps show 98 to 99% similarity in aligned coding regions and strong structural homology across chromosomes. If creation were true in the literal separately engineered sense, you would not expect identical broken genes in identical genomic locations. Pseudogenes. One example is the GULO gene in vitamin C synthesis. Previous creatures can synthesize vitamin C, but it is inactive when the human mutation must get vitamin C from diet. Identical viral insertions and identical loci, as well as a perfectly nested tree of genetic relationships. There are various fields of science that diverge with the God creation mythology. Across multiple independent scientific fields, the data consistently converge on the evolutionary common descent rather than special creation. Can I ask how much time I have left?
Yeah, you got about 4 minutes.
Okay, so under genetics and genomics, DNA sequence comparisons across species, shared pseudogenes and mutations in various identical locations, endogenous retroviruses, chromosome 2 human fusion evidence. We have already provided that information. Molecular biology, conserved developmental genes or Hox genes, shared biochemical machinery across all life, universal genetic code, consistency with predictable variation patterns indicating descent with modification, not separate origin systems. Evolutionary biology. Am I ahead of slide? I apologize. Evolutionary biology, observed speciation events, phylogenetic trees built from independent data sets, DNA morphologies, proteins, and all concurred same outcomes. Population genetics, models matching observed variation. Paleontology, ordered fossil succession over time. Transitional forms such as fish to tetrapod to land mammal to whale. Vestigial structures, predictable skeletal similarities across species. There are no modern mammals in the Precambrian. The first true mammals did not even emerge until the late Triassic period, more than 350 million years later. Embryology, developmental biology, early stage vertebral similarities, conserved developmental pathways, shared genetic control systems, and embryogenesis. Biogeography, island species resembling near mainland relatives and continental patterns matching plate tectonics and evolutionary, as well as Australia's unique marsupial radiation. Comparative genomics or bioinformatics, nested hierarchical clustering of genomes, independent data sets converging into the same phylogenetic tree, predictive accuracy of evolutionary models. microbiology, and virology. The viral evolution observed in real time, mutation and selection patterns and pathogens such as the flu, endogenous viral insertions across genomic patterns. On the right, you can actually see this is what a live understanding of evolution of specifically the flu virus. Anthropology in the biological as well as the physical, human evolutionary lineage and fossil and genetic record, shared ancestry with other primates supported across multiple data sets. And who disagrees? The church. And it's not even all of them. It's just a tiny minority of them. We have to act in good faith here. There is no creation argument. There is only the blind faith in Genesis. Thank you. And you could subscribe to me on YouTube /@1stAmender, 1stAmender. Thank you.
All right. You can stop sharing your screen now. Perfect. All right. Someone's got to echo. Oh, that was you. Okay. All right. Resetting the time here. We're going to turn it over to SFT and Sam. Whoever wants to go first out of you two. The moment you start talking, I will hit the start button.
Great. So thank you, fellas, for engaging with this important debate. Today, we are asked, does genetics support creation or evolution? Well, unfortunately for our opponents, they gave us the W by simply showing up to debate. You see, one cannot argue that a position is true or false unless they have access to truth. If evolution on naturalism were true, then we would have a defeater for trusting our cognitive faculties. And therefore, if our opponent's position was correct, they couldn't know it. I will explain. Instead of acknowledging the God who made our minds to know truth for his plan and purpose, our opponents would have us believe that the mind is an emergent property of the brain, and the brain results of random chance. The mind and thoughts would simply be neurological structures that are created and established by evolutionary processes. According to atheist philosopher Patricia Churchland, natural selection selects by way of the 4 F's: feeding, fighting, fleeing, and reproduction. By the way, those are her words, not mine. She goes on to say that truth, whatever that is, takes a back seat. So feeding, an organism needs nourishment. Fighting, an organism must defend itself and or impose its will on another organism. Fleeing, an organism must know when to retreat, lest it become the feast. And reproduction, an organism has to have offspring, or else the whole process comes to an end. By the way, it needs to be able to tell the difference between a pink one and a blue one, or they can't make a new one. I know some people are confused about this these days, but reproduction would be the difference between a superior and inferior organism on this evolutionary paradigm. If a false belief has survival value, then natural selection could select for it. Natural selection could select against a true belief, thus lowering your probability for trusting your cognitive faculties. For example, one could believe that a lion is harmless and a snuggly creature, and it just likes to race. And so as long as one would run from it and they got away, then this belief could be held as true. Another example would be that our atheistic friends believe that evolutionary processes created theistic beliefs, and they are all false, but perhaps have some historical communal survival value. On the other hand, knowing the truth might lower your survival value. For example, knowing about the Clintons' dirty laundry might get you killed. Therefore, truth would exist on these terms, but it would be less probable that our cognitive faculties could discern it. The power of this argument is that there is no defeaters, and any rebuttal from this paradigm would only be the invocation of these neurological structures that have arisen by evolutionary processes, which we have already given reason to distrust. Hope is not lost, however. There are at least some options. Number one, our opponents can embrace a theistic form of evolution, but that would be an implicit concession in this debate because theistic evolution is not random and unguided. Number two, they could say that truth does not exist at all, but that would be a performative contradiction because they are here to argue that their position is true. This would also be an implicit concession of the debate. They can explicitly concede the debate. They can repent and be reconciled with the God from who they are absconding, the God who they already know. This is our desire for our unbelievers. Amen. They can refuse to engage with this argument and borrow our firm foundation from the Christian worldview. Unfortunately, this would be another implicit concession. For our opponents, the argument does not stop here. The argument has collateral damage on their paradigm. This would make unintelligible the very scientific method that we are arguing. It would make the preconditions of science, such as induction, the rationality of the mind, the belief of the rationality and the uniformity of the external world, all unjustifiable. This would also give them a defeater for their belief in atheism, naturalism, and everything they say in this debate. Therefore, we can be sure that genetics does not, in fact, support evolution. Lastly, perhaps our opponents are comfortable borrowing from the Christian Foundation for Science and pretending there is no God. Perhaps they feel they can engage with the science while ignoring these broader, glaring worldview issues. Well, we come to take that away too. Donny, over to you, brother.
Okay, let me pause the timer there. And Mike, if you don't mind, I can get my screen shared. So Sam, you ended there at 4 minutes and 35 seconds. So I have just over 10 minutes. Mike, is that coming in?
Yeah, it's looking good.
Okay. I couldn't hear Mike, but maybe he's just on mute. Okay. So 4 minutes and 35 seconds, and I will start it up. Oh, no worries. No, sorry. Just wanted to make sure everything's good. Okay, here we go. Does genetics support creation or evolution? I am pumped for this debate. Sam, thank you for setting the foundation, and to my interlocutors, especially 1stAmender, bringing up some of my favorite points. So what I like is to stick as close to home as possible. Common descent teaches that all life, including humans, chimpanzees, grass, and ladybugs, are related through common ancestry. But if I can demonstrate, which we are going to do here tonight, that humans and chimpanzees aren't related through common ancestry, well, that means humans and ladybugs or humans and grass are definitely not related. Several genetics lines of evidence that we are going to focus on that preclude common descent. By preclude, I mean make impossible. There's a lot of evidence that's agnostic overall to the debate, which 1stAmender brought up several of those, but I like to focus on the discriminatory points, points that only one side can explain, in this case, the creation side. For example, we'll be discussing mutation rates in the mitochondrial DNA and the Y chromosome, the fact that mutation rates are fast, DNA diversity in these chromosomes, maternally inherited and paternally inherited, are fast. There's really only a few DNA differences separating any two people, and we can trace back all mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosomal DNA to two single ancestors in the not so distant past. 1stAmender discussed in his opening statement the Y chromosome, and he did not satisfactorily answer it, and so I'll cover that here, which I've got built into my opening. If humans and chimps share an ancestor and evolution is true, why are their Y chromosomes so different? So right here is an image from a paper in the conventional literature, and you can see on the visual we have humans and chimpanzees. The human Y and chimpanzee Y, when you consider overall gene content, size differences, and architecture, they're less than 30% the same. As a matter of fact, you can see in the color-coded areas, the heterochromatin, this is a densely packed kind of DNA, comprises a lot of repetitive sequences like satellite DNA. That is basically absent in the chimpanzee. The chimpanzee Y is half the size. And the question is, why is this the case? You can appeal to recombination, but naming mechanisms is not the same thing as providing a sophisticated mathematical model documenting when, where, how, and why these changes took place since the hypothetical split. You can take male Y chromosomes on the planet and you can line them up, you can build a family tree, and based on the mutation rate in the Y chromosome, which is roughly 1 to 3 per person per generation, goes back just 4,500 years ago. Why don't we find 100 to 200,000 years worth of DNA differences in the Y chromosome. This, again, from the conventional literature in 2020. Despite a recent divergence of these species, roughly 7 million years, the evolutionary community assuming that a divergence took place, their Y chromosomes, referring to humans and chimps, differ just a little bit. No, enormously in size and gene content. So sure, 1stAmender can assert all day, well, recombination and gene loss and sperm competition. I want to see an actual model. I want to see a representative sequence of this hypothetical common ancestor where we can actually tell which lineage lost what, which lineage gained what. For example, the chimpanzee Y is only half the size as the human Y, as I said earlier. And they were so shocked, these researchers, that when they discovered this data, of course, evolutionists have post hoc, ad hoc rationalizations and rescue devices. They were so shocked that this is what they would expect between human and chicken autosomes that split roughly 310 million years ago. And chickens aren't even mammals, okay? Puzzlingly, so this is a puzzle to them, in terms of shared genes and overall architecture, the human Y is more similar to the gorilla Y than to the chimpanzee Y. So 1stAmender was discussing nested hierarchies. Well, there's a break in the nested hierarchy. Remember, it's the differences that make all the differences. Sure, similarities. Okay, we can discuss similarities all day, but it's major discontinuities, whether it's fossil discontinuities like the hyoid bone and the ischium between Australopithecines, extant apes, and humans, or the genetic data like mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome between chimps and humans. Notice this, 2024, things did not get any better for the evolutionary community. You can look at the various creatures here, chimpanzee and humans, and you can compare their Y chromosomes. And as you can see, only 26.2% the same. Okay, I definitely want to cross-examine 1stAmender in the discussion on this because, again, he did mention recombination. Okay, we got a mechanism. Let's see if it works. So what I want to see is an ancestral Y chromosome reconstruction, not just assertions, not just claims. We don't want to see the 5 Ds of evolutionist dodgeball here tonight. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. No, we want to see a reconstructed sequence because evolutionists cannot just claim gain or loss without knowing the ancestral state. If you go back to 2010, they admitted that that ancestral state cannot be determined, and therefore imaginary storytelling is not the same as reconstruction. But it is 2026, so perhaps they've done it. We need a rate-based population genetics model showing the required duplication/deletion rates to account for these changes, required recombination frequencies. 1stAmender discussed recombination there. Remember, these differences are massive. We got differences in palindromic sequences, heterochromatin. Where did all the heterochromatin go in the pan lineage? Apparently, if evolution's true, it lost it all. Why? I want to see these mechanisms. I want to see 1stAmender and Ron model them, quantify them, test them, simulate them. So here's some questions. How did these massive architectural changes occur mechanistically in 6 to 7 million years? Why did these changes occur within the proposed 6 million year time frame? How is the entirety of that heterochromatic arm lost in the chimpanzee line? And so these are questions that we can go over in the discussion. Which lineage lost what? Where is the ancestral Y chromosome sequence? A lot here. Another point that precludes common descent in naturalistic evolution is mutually interdependent systems. We could discuss many. With 3.5 minutes here, I'll just go over one. We have DNA and DNA repair enzymes. It is said that we can accumulate roughly 1 million DNA breaks in a single cell in a single day. But remember, we have 65 roughly trillion cells. That's a lot of DNA mistakes. Thankfully, we have these incredibly designed DNA repair enzymes that go in and fix a lot of these DNA breaks or DNA lesions. The problem for the evolutionists, though, is that the information for the DNA repair enzymes are encoded in the DNA. But you need the DNA repair enzymes in order that organisms don't go extinct due to mutation accumulation, not only in somatic cells, but also germ cells. So the question is, which came first, the DNA or the DNA repair enzymes? Because if you say DNA, well, you need the DNA repair enzymes to fix the DNA mistakes. If you say the DNA repair enzymes, Well, the information that encodes for the DNA repair enzymes are in the DNA. We discussed briefly earlier mitochondrial Eve, the fact that we've been able to trace mitochondrial DNA back to a single woman just roughly 6,000 years ago. Here's a sophisticated phylogenetic tree. This was created by Dr. Rob Carter, who's an expert in mitochondrial DNA. He's published, as a matter of fact, in the conventional literature, he's published the Eve consensus sequence. These branches represent mutations or DNA differences. And what you can see on this tree is an explosion, a starburst pattern. That suggests rapid and exponential population growth, which is what we would expect through a flood bottleneck. But what you don't find are a lot of mutations. On average, separating people from the Eve consensus sequence are about 20 to 30 DNA differences. And you'll notice, take the HVR haplogroup, for example, the most common in Europe, you've got differing size branches. What does that mean? Well, mutation rates are variable. You have some people that are picking up more mutations in the same amount of time than their cousins, as they can be traced back to a common ancestor. So where do we find evolution here? Where do we find thousands of generations? We only see a couple hundred generations here on this tree. Where do we find the kind of evidence that would suggest deep time evolution is true? Same thing with
seconds.
Same thing with the Y chromosome. And so there's something called mutation saturation. If evolution were true, then we should actually find many more mutations in the mitochondrial chromosome and also the Y chromosome. But we find low variation, fast mutation rates. This is all biblical time. In my last 20 seconds, I'll say I've got dozens of slides. We can go over this in the rebuttal and the discussion, going over DNA function, genome-wide functionality. 1stAmender mentioned pseudogenes, endogenous retroviruses. We know that those DNA units are now necessary to sustain healthy life processes in the cell, pointing better to common design than common ancestry. And that's it.
Thank you for being on time there. We are going to get into the rebuttals here. We got 10-minute rebuttals, or 10-minute rebuttals on each side. They can split it up however they want on each team. And then after that, we'll get into the open discussion. So I'm going to get the timer ready. I just want to ask everyone in the audience to go ahead, like the video again, pump it into the algorithm, and subscribe if you're new here, watching on someone else's channel and you like debate stuff. That's going to be tons and tons here every week. We got more. I saw the schedule briefly not too long ago, and it's booked up. So then we got DebateCon 8 coming up next month on the 25th and 26th, Dallas, Texas. You can get your tickets. There's some left, and we do expect it to sell out probably sometime, 3 weeks or so before. We've been promoting it, a couple months now, so a lot of tickets have already sold. We're filling seats, so we want you there if you like this stuff. So here we go. Whenever you're ready, kicking it back over to the evolution side. Whoever wants to take the reins.
These are the rebuttals?
Yes, 10-minute rebuttals.
Okay. All right, so 10-minute rebuttal. I've written down some of the things that y'all have said. For Sam's intro, he had stated right at the beginning, saying, if you show up to a debate, you lose. I am a little lost as to exactly how that works from a logical perspective. It doesn't really follow. Is there a presumption that you are right every time you walk into a debate and that there is no possibility that you could be wrong? That's what your statement infers. You then also said that evolutionary processes create theistic beliefs. Actually, that is kind of true in the sense that religion has survived often due to dogmatism in the Middle Ages or throughout time in general. Those that did not believe were killed. This would be an evolutionary advantage to believe in the Middle Ages. Another good example of evolutionary processes create theistic beliefs is the fact that superstitious people tended to live longer. And the reason why is because if you can imagine a caveman that sees a bush where it's empty in the bush, but they see that there's rustling, the person that is not superstitious will probably get up to check the bush and then gets mauled by a tiger because they didn't realize that there was a predatory animal in the bush. Whereas the superstitious one that sees rustling in the bush hides in the cave. So there would be an evolutionary reason why people possess theistic beliefs. You also said that we could repent. We are actually not, in fact, making a God or not God argument. The question is, does genetics support evolution or creation? The answer is pretty clear. It's evolution. As for Donny, I find that much more interesting in the part where he is saying that grass and ladybugs are not related. They are both eukaryotic organisms, and so they would be related in that sense. However, it would be a very, 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 very distant ancestor, having to go likely back to the last universal common ancestor, or maybe slightly afterwards, to find the common ancestor to those two widely diverging species. They had said that DNA diversity is in fact low. I would ask him where do you see that? Because I showed the full chromosomes among chimpanzees and humans. It's extremely similar, and any eukaryotic organisms share quite a lot of similarities, which would be why we observe a great deal of similarity even between humans and bananas. They are both eukaryotes. They possess cells that have cell walls with a nucleus and a membrane, as well as a mitochondria. You had brought up, and I love that you brought this up, was the Y chromosomes differences being wide. Yeah, that's correct. It is widely different. It is, in fact, one of the tiniest portions of the human genome that you could reference. I also answered mechanistic properties why. You created, there's a creation of Y chromosomes evolves unusually fast compared to the rest of the genome. We know this for a fact. The Y chromosome has no matching partner for most of its length. Most chromosomes come in pairs. During reproduction, they undergo recombination, where copies are then exchanged and errors can be corrected. The Y chromosome only exists in males. It does not recombine with the X chromosome for most of its length. The Y chromosome is also very small. Humans contain over 20,000 protein coding genes, and the Y chromosome only represents roughly 50 to 60 of those protein coding genes. You pointed out a comparative analysis of chromosome X, in which it is a much greater portion of evolution, whereas the Y chromosome does not. The Y chromosome is less than 2% of the human genome. X and Y chromosome is not 50-50. It is a 98 to 99 to 2 to 1. The Y chromosome is specifically known for this. Do you at least acknowledge those facts that I have provided? Posit that I'm sorry, these are further questions that I'm going to ask in the open rebuttal, but you also stated that endogenous retroviruses and that they do code. You know, I actually looked at the exact study that you are talking about. It turns out that what they are inferring as something quote unquote useful is whether or not does anything at all. As in, if you say, for example, have a protein that does absolutely nothing, it just makes a protein and then the protein provides nothing, it infers some use, which was thrown away by various other scientists. This would indicate its wide variation of use from its what is typically, I think, 5% of the total human genome now to over 80%. Most studies show this, around, I'm trying to find the exact number, but it is a much smaller number than that single study that you have provided. Anyway, those are my rebuttals.
Okay. I'm not going to be able to match Amender's point by points here. I have sort of a more 60,000 foot view of this. I was a little bit worried when I wrote my opening that I would get in trouble for not sticking to the topic as stated and getting more general and philosophical. But I'm actually kind of happy to see that Sam did the same thing. So this debate is kind of dividing itself up naturally into two different directions. One of which is more philosophical and one of which is more technical and scientific. And I think it's important that we make some decisions about which of these we're going to tackle, because either of those is going to be pretty time consuming. And we have an hour, and the problem is that all of these topics are complicated, and you can get deep into the weeds. So let me just talk about one uh, uh, point that Sam brought up, which is that we need a God in order to have any kind of grounding for talking about truth at all. That's not true. And there's a story I could tell about why that's not true. But for the sake of argument, I'll grant that it's true and ask, suppose if we need a God, why do we need specifically the God of the Bible and the God of Genesis? Why can I not ground my reason in, say, Vishnu, who created the universe 4 billion years ago with all of the laws of physics as they are, and has now just left the universe to evolve under purely naturalistic and discoverable laws? This is something I'm genuinely curious about, because I see an awful lot of daylight between the sort of foundational arguments for God's existence and talking snakes. And I'm always just really curious about how you get from A to B. Just since I have a little bit more time left, I will say just a word about how you can ground truth in pure naturalism. The scientific method is actually a lot simpler than most people think it is. It's just finding the best explanation for all the things that you observe. And it turns out that when you seek out those explanations, what you are led to is naturalistic explanations of everything that we observe, not just biology, but also the functioning of our brains. That can all be explained naturalistically. Our brains can be explained in terms of computational processes. And this used to be somewhat, again, used to be an area of legitimate disagreement. But just very recently, we've seen constructive proofs that computers can do everything that human brains can do, at least in terms of their I/O behavior. And give it a year or two, computers are going to be exceeding human capabilities in just about every possible respect. So that's not proof that there's that mind can be reduced to the activity of brain, but it's a very strong indication that it might be. So that's another discussion, that set of weeds that we could dive into during the discussion if we wanted to.
Yeah, 45 seconds.
Yeah, so the other thing that I'm curious about, Don, and I'll just pose this question as a lead into the discussion. Donny, you listed a number of things that you claim to be problems for the evolutionary point of view. You said that there's no mathematical model for the evolution of the Y chromosome. You mentioned something called heterochromatin. You asked the which came first, the chicken or the egg, in terms of DNA or DNA repair. You mentioned mitochondrial Eve, who, by the way, lived not 6,000 years ago, but 150 to 200,000 years ago.
And that is time.
So my question, can I just finish off with the question?
Sure. And then
My question is,
give
if
them
I
the
were
same
to
amount of
finish
time.
off that list, how many items would be on it? In other words, if we were to make a good faith attempt to actually address the points that you raised as problems for evolution, how big would our task be?
Okay.
And Mike, are we doing, so are these 11-minute rebuttals, or I just want to make sure?
The email I got was 10 minutes, and he went about 15 or so, 15, 20 max seconds over. So I'll allow you guys to have that same courtesy before we get into the open discussion.
No worries. Just want to double check.
Yep. Whenever you're ready, we'll kick it over to your side. Y'all will get y'all's time, and then we'll go straight into it. Chatters, like the video, keep commenting. Please do not spam all caps, same thing over and over again. I will time you out. I don't like to do that. I like to see what you guys say, but it does get annoying. It doesn't help the algorithm when you do that. All right, go ahead.
All right. So, yeah, to answer your question, you guys lost because your position can't justify the facts that you invoke. It's called a self-refuting argument. Should your conclusion be true, then the reasoning that you're invoking cannot be justified. So it's necessarily false. So, Ron, you complained a lot and you talked about God a lot, but you gave no actual rebuttal to our position. You pointed to the consensus, but that's a problem. The consensus has a long history of being overturned, like a Copernican revolution, or when we went from an eternal heavens to a red shift. So that means nothing in a debate like this. You said that it was a conspiracy with an agenda. Well, everybody has their presuppositions, Ron, but I wouldn't say that it's a conspiracy. I would say that it would be a competing paradigm. That's all it is. So Ron's complaint about AIG and other ministries and that science is not, Ron complained about AIG and other ministries, but science is not our ultimate authority. I would ask you guys, what is your ultimate authority? Science is going to be a lousy one. We can talk about that. So Ron said that we have no evidence and that we are at odds with the data, but here we confuse the facts with the interpretation of the facts. Respectfully, Ron, you should know better. This isn't your first conversation about this. 1stAmender, I'm not sure about you. Donny gave plenty of facts. It's the interpretation that we disagree with. Ron failed to make a distinction between high-quality science, that which is demonstrable, repeatable, and a low-quality science, something that would be more forensic or inferential in nature, like a historical science. So he conflated a functional science with a historical science. Both Ron and 1stAmender made the same blunder of confusing the methodology, that which we call science, with the interpretation of the data. We love science, as you will see tonight. We just reject your low quality interpretation of the data. And lastly, why Christianity? Because all of these other worldviews that you can invoke, they're self-refuting as well. We can talk about that later. Donny.
Okay, let me just pause the timer so I can get my screen shared real quick. And I think it's good. Sam, you can see that?
Yeah, you're ready to go.
Okay, let's go. All right. Okay, so I'll start it again. We're at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Good stuff there. Sam, I'll start at the beginning, cover what I can. Thankfully, I covered quite a bit in the opening statement as well. Like endogenous retroviruses, I'll just hit this real quick since I've got it up on screen. Shared endogenous retroviral-like sequences across the biological world. The question is, are these ERVs really the ancient remnants of past viral infections, or do they represent largely created units of DNA function? And 1stAmender, he is going to have quite the task here tonight. Here's one of my favorite papers, Switching Sides, How Endogenous Retroviruses Protect Us from Viral Infections. Notice this, long disregarded as junk DNA or genomic dark matter. ERVs have turned out to represent important components of the antiviral immune response. Notice this paper. This is incredible. HERVs, that's human endogenous retrovirus, appear to play important roles in physiology and fetal development. Notice this part. If the accidental infection of a mammalian ancestor by an exogenous, right? You got exogenous and endogenous, exogenous like HIV occurring from outside, ERV within, had never occurred, so they're assuming that happened. The placenta and the mammals that produce it, including humans, would never exist. I like to exist. Sam likes to exist. Hopefully our interlocutors like to exist. Why does the biological world share endogenous retroviruses? For the same reason all kinds of modes of transportation share engines in common. You're not going to get too far in your vehicle if you don't have an engine, and you're not going to get too far in the world if you don't have these functional DNA units to act in embryological development. They act in determining cell types. They function in the immune system. They even act in tumor suppression, which is incredible because they have to look, the ERVs have to share sequence similarity with exogenous retroviruses to carry out their roles. And they notice right in the conventional literature, our knowledge about endogenous retroviral elements involved in cell immune responses is constantly increasing. We have evidence now that over 80% of the genome is active, biochemically active. Okay, we have known functions for pseudogenes. I've got right here First Amender mentioned pseudogenes. Paper after paper documenting the fact that pseudogenes are not necessary. Yeah, that there are some broken genes like the gulo vitamin C producing gene. Sure, we can discuss that. But a lot of the so-called pseudogenes that are shared between humans and chimps and other biological organisms, they're now known to be functional. They're active. They can act as a decoy mechanism for degradation to protect the functional protein coding counterpart. They act to regulate their protein coding counterparts, which they have to look like their protein coding counterparts to carry out those roles. It's function after function. And this goes back to Dr. Garrett's argument about consensus. Okay, consensus, therefore evolution is true, or the evidence is on the side of evolution. Well, consensus in the past was that endogenous retroviruses were non-functional junk. You can see that right here in the paper, long disregarded as junk DNA. Consensus was that pseudogenes were all junk, that the majority of non-coding DNA was junk. Consensus was bloodletting was good. It was a widely accepted medical treatment used for centuries in which doctors remove blood to cure diseases. Despite the consensus behind it, later evidence, just like we see here, showed it was often harmful rather than helpful. So if consensus determines truth, well, then what about all the errors throughout history? Ron also said that there hasn't been disagreement for 150 years. Well, maybe amongst those that already believe they're related to banana plants and grass, but there are thousands and thousands of scientists that disagree with common descent. And that's why I focused largely on the mitochondrial DNA and also the Y chromosome. For example, these graphs showing that there's far too few differences in the mitochondrial chromosome. Mitochondrial DNA, it exists outside of the nucleus. It's passed down on the female side. It's a smaller chromosome, 16,500 letters. And it doesn't have recombination. Its function is it turns sugars into energy, basically produces electricity for the cell. Very important. And we can trace mitochondrial DNA back to a single female ancestor. And Ron's rebuttal was, oh, but don't, and this is an assertion. This is a dodge. And I love you, Ron, but to just assert, well, Eve lived 100 to 200,000 years ago. Yeah, based on what? Evolutionary assumptions. They calibrate the data with the hypothetical geologic column. No, when we look at known mutation rates, take the Parsons paper, for example, and several other pedigree rates, where you take grandmother, mother, daughter, count up the differences, you get a fast mutation rate. You can also build a phylogenetic tree. We saw no rebuttal to this. Y chromosome and the mitochondrial DNA. First Amender is confused. There is low variation in the Y chromosomes of humans. Every male human is 99.9% the same in the Y chromosome. Then you bring in the chimpanzee and we're less than 30% the same. Yeah, you can say recombination all day, and recombination can act to create some diversity, but simply naming recombination is not the same thing as answering the question or providing a sophisticated mathematical model documenting which lineage lost what, which lineage gained what happened to the heterochromatin. That's like saying, well, this is explained by erosion. You can just name a geologic mechanism, but we need an actual model. No model has been presented yet. What do we see on this phylogenetic tree? We see a single woman. We see variable mutation rates. We see low diversity. Again, this is akin to this candle over here. Okay. If evolution were true, and we've been accumulating mutations in the Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA for 100 to 200,000 years, we should have a lot more DNA variety than just roughly 30 separating people from Eve. Max, you got 140 differences. That's nothing. This is all biblical time. Where's the thousands of differences? What we observe is that this candle has only been burning for a short amount of time. If deep time were true, then that candle should have basically been burnt. You'd expect mutation saturation. The other point he brought up was the chromosome 2 fusion. I've done a ton of work on the chromosome 2 fusion in my last minute here. A friend and I discovered using BLAST, these so-called telomeric repeats, TTA, GGG, CCC, TAA. We found those in other chromosomes. They're functional in gene expression. They're active. You can find a large signature in the chromosome 9. And so point is, these so-called signatures that we find in the chromosome 2 that suggest there is a fusion, you actually find those same signatures in other chromosomes that are said to not be the result of a fusion. So we're going to have to discuss that. But it's not a differentiating point for the evolutionists, because even if there were a fusion, it's an apomorphy. It happened in one line, the human line. So the creation model can easily account for it. The evolutionists would have a difficult time. I think I got 30 more seconds because of the
About
extra time.
15 or so
15.
from what I
Okay,
got.
so I'll wrap it up with this. The evolutionists and the challenge for them, explain how this unilateral mistake, the so-called fusion, was able to spread to all people on the planet. No more people with 48 chromosomes. Everybody's got 46. Where is the model? We don't want just assertions. And that's it.
All righty, going back here. Everybody's good. Okay. If you could, thank you. Got it. We're gonna get into the open discussion, guys. I'm always down for it to get a little spicy, but try to at least let each other finish whatever answer from whatever question you ask before you go to the next one, or ask them a question. That always helps everybody understand what's actually happening, and keeps it at least on the tracks a little bit. And if it does get too hard, I will ask if we can go into 2 minutes and kind of let you guys decide who's going to go first in each of those. So without much ado, let's get into the open discussion here. I'm going to start the timer right now, and you guys can pick it up where you left off.
If I could jump in real quick, because I do appreciate that 1stAmender attempted to provide a mechanism for the Y chromosome dissimilarity. If I can run for a few minutes, a few points by him on
now,
that
minutes,
issue.
I personally cannot
Few
grant
minutes.
you, because you guys are gonna need
Actually,
to do
before
some
you dive
back and
into that,
forth.
I'd like to make a couple of
No,
suggestions.
I was going to ask him a question. I wasn't going to talk for a few minutes. I remember I meant I had a question for him and see if he could.
Well,
what
before
his
you ask
thoughts
his
are on
question,
it.
would you mind answering mine, the one that I already posed to you
Sure.
at the end of my rebuttal?
Well, did you want to start with your question then, Ron, to be fair?
If you don't mind. I mean,
yeah,
it's
I
a
don't
simple,
mind.
it's a simple
Yeah.
question. I'm just trying to get a rough answer, a rough idea of the magnitude of the task before us as you see it. In other words, is there a list of like 10 problems that if we could satisfactorily address them, you would change your mind?
Close the
Or is it
screen share for me.
100 problems or 1,000
Yes,
problems?
Mike, that's my screen.
Yeah,
But Mike, if you want, you can leave it up since I'll go right into my question. But yeah, so that's my screen shared. But I'll ask Ron's question because my answer is going to
just
bring
so
us.
people could see all you guys when he's asking the question. And
Oh, do you need me to click the stop?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. And then just let me know when I can share
For
it
sure.
again. So it's a great question, Ron. And it comes down to the question. Does genetics support creation or evolution? Obviously, you say evolution, I say creation. We put forth what we believe are a lot of challenges.
You've misunderstood my question. My question is, you started listing some things that you said were problems for evolution.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, if you had the time to complete that list, how long would it be? The answer to that question is a number, or a rough guess at a number.
It would be a long list. I mean,
How long?
I brought up
10,
5
100, 1,000, 10,000? How many problems are there on your list?
quite a few. I'd say a couple hundred.
A couple of
If we're going to
hundred.
bring in the age of the earth and geology, I mean, right now this is just genetics. So if you want to bring in chemistry, you want to bring in, but I'm bringing up what I believe are the largest.
I, by the way, have an answer to your requested mechanism.
Yeah, well, I want to say this, and then we're going to hand it to 1stAmender if you don't mind to answer this question, because would I change my mind is part of Ron's question. I think it's a good question. And there's a lot of points we could discuss. I mean, I could say, oh, the sky is blue, therefore creation's true. The earth is round, therefore evolution's true. These are agnostic points. Both models, a lot of different models can explain the data. So I want to focus on points like, let's say, if the majority of the genome is junk based on evolutionary leftovers, all these genetic mistakes that 1stAmender is talking about, then on that point, that would lean evolution, because now we're looking at genomes littered with evolutionary leftovers. But if we find genomes of treasure, genomes of function, well, then that would point more towards creation. So I think there's certain points we can debate, and depending on what's true, one side versus the other is going to be forced to say, okay, yeah, that fits better with either evolution or creation. But one major point is what 1stAmender wanted to discuss.
Yeah, so
is
standing for truth, you've got a couple of things. Number one, I can either provide you the explanation for that mechanism, or there's a couple of questions that I have for you that I would like to go over.
well, yeah, I want to ask you,
Which
and
one? Which one?
well, because you mentioned recombination.
No, I'm asking you which one. I'm providing you the option to choose which one that you wanted. Did you want the explanatory mechanism, or did you want the two questions that I had specifically for you?
Let's start with the explanatory mechanism, then we'll shift to your question
Yeah.
since Ron just had a question.
So you
Let's do
asked
this. Hey, since
specifically
Ron,
the explanatory mechanism.
Yeah, but hey,
What is going on?
I
Are
want to
you
say, I know you're
okay?
excited,
I'm
but
trying to answer it.
no, yeah, but allow me to reiterate the question so the audience can hear. Okay, so you said recombination could largely explain the differences in the Y chromosome. And it's okay. I would agree
The
that
lack of
recombination.
recombination.
No, stop. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
a
want the
lack
full
of
mechanism, I can
recombination.
provide it, right? So during meiosis, the homologous chromosomes, they swap DNA and it helps repair the damage. The Y chromosome cannot recombine with the X chromosome because it's not an
Right.
X, it's a Y, for about 95% of its length.
Right.
So
I
what
agree.
happens is, because there's no pairs, that results in harmful mutations that are harder to remove. The beneficial mutations can drag nearby mutations along with them. The DNA repair is less effective. This also cuts it in half as well, because you're talking about only among males, specifically the Y chromosome, the father to the son to the grandson to the great grandson. Male cells divide many, many more times than, say, female
Okay,
cells.
I want to stop. No, I understand the story. You're naming the mechanism. You're given the scientific details of
Hold on.
recombination.
You wanted
versus
what
the-
you wanted
No,
is
but no,
that you
listen.
wanted me to explain the mechanism,
And
right?
You're not
what
answering
more
the
do you
question, though.
expect
No,
from him in the
I've
time we
already
have
said-
available?
I'm literally trying to
I've already
explain the
said
mechanism.
that the mechanism is real. I want you to provide a sophisticated mathematical model. I want you to actually answer the Y
Yeah,
chromosome
if you could
dissimilarity challenge.
close your screen share. Just,
Yeah, well, I want First Amender to answer this question. It's a very basic question. I got it
Close
on
your
screen so
screen
he can
share.
answer it. Are you able to see this question on the screen?
Which lineage lost what? What are you referring to?
Exactly, because you got humans and chimps, and supposedly they share a common ancestor roughly 6 to 9 million years ago. You're saying the lack of recombination, the Y chromosome, can explain a lot of the differences. Okay, I want details. I want a model.
That's to provide specific DNA analysis of something from 6 to 7 million years ago is physically impossible.
Okay, so answer the
think you know
question.
this.
What specific amplicons, palindromes, or gene families were
I've already
supposedly
explained to you it's not
Listen,
possible
the
to have
beginnings of your
exactly what you're
sentences
looking
are starting
for.
in the middle of mine. Can I ask a single question without you interrupting?
yeah. Also,
Okay.
if
All
we
you're
could-
doing
we
is
got
naming-
the question, so let's close the screen share so everybody can be
Okay.
seen here. Otherwise, it's just annoying.
Okay. So
Okay, answer
every
the question.
person has 2 copies of autosomes and 2 sex chromosomes, but only the males carry that Y. So that
I
means the
know.
effective population size of the Y chromosome is much smaller than that of most chromosomes. So over time, the Y chromosome is going to lose those genes. The Y contains only 50 to 60 of the total protein coding genes. The X chromosome has over 8 to 900. Do you see the problem?
No, you're dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Why was all the heterochromatin lost in the pan lineage? Because of lack of recombination?
We don't have a way to determine
Exactly.
that.
You
All
don't
of
have
that
an
is
answer.
gone.
This is a fairy tale. This is not science. You're not actually telling me. Okay,
All
I'll
right,
ask this.
fine.
No, I'll ask this.
Then
Hey,
if it is a
which
fairy tale,
lineage
no,
lost
what I
the
want from you
question
palindrome?
at a
is
time,
stop for a
please.
second. Stop for a
It's the
second.
same question, but
So
he's
then,
not
So then,
answering
if
it.
it is a fairy tale, then what I would like from you is specifically, I'm going to posit that the evolutionists are wrong and that you are right. What is your explanatory model for following the scientific fields that I've mentioned pointing to evolution? I probably mentioned about 8 separate fields
And
that
none of them
all
point to
rely on
evolution.
they all rely on evolution.
No.
So what you need to provide is an explanatory model for all of those things sans evolution. Provide it.
Yes, and this can be extrapolated. The fact that we have
Go
Y
ahead.
chromosome.
Sans evolution. I'm ready to hear it. Let's
So I
go
just
back to
want to
the
point
I'm
out
not,
that
I'm not
you
going to let
did-
you
did
dodge.
give a
I'm not
concession,
going to let
right?
you dodge and divert. Okay.
That
You
was a
had no
concession.
I didn't
answer.
dodge and divert. You
Yes,
asked
you did dodge and
specifically for the
divert.
exact
Listen,
mechanism I've
it's
provided
my turn to
it, and then
respond.
you were asking for
I
evidence
understand
that's
you're excited.
impossible to render.
I understand you're excited because
So no, it's
the
not
Y
a dodge.
chromosome
I'm saying
demolishes.
you
No, you did
physically
dodge.
cannot offer
because
that.
you're
You
trying to
cannot offer that evidence
Yes, I
because
can.
it's
I'm
seven.
gonna
Because you're
stop
asking
both of
for
you guys,
DNA
actually,
from
and I'm
8
gonna
million
let-
years ago. It
I'm gonna
doesn't
let
work.
Sam talk
Okay, give
here.
us a minute response each, uninterrupted, because he's not allowing me to counter him.
No, I was just pointing out that,
Provided.
that he made an argument. He couldn't defend his argument. He gave a concession, and his argument was just an assertion that he couldn't defend. Before we move on, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that that was a concession on your point.
Right.
It was just
I want to
a
say.
story.
I want to
No,
say this for
that's
the
not
audience.
That's not a
true.
concession
His
whatsoever.
explanation,
I've
his
explained
assertion
it
of the
pretty
lack of
clearly.
Am I going to
you're
be able?
aware? I think you're aware.
Hey, Mike,
standing
I
for
think we
that
should do a
is
minute
exactly
response.
what
I
happened.
do
I want
wanna
to be able to
go-
Please
respond to
do.
his.
Yeah, I do
I want
want
to be able to
time.
respond to his
Please do.
assertion.
I do want to go to time responses. Just the moment you guys hear me talk, I wish, everybody could obviously listen and talk at the same time. It's hard, but the moment you do think you hear me, just give it a break so I can make sure we're being guided along here towards something productive. Just saying I said this, I didn't say that. We're not going to get anywhere. But I do want to go to the timed and give, let's go with Ron here, a chance to pop in. And then we'll give you a full minute. And then if 1stAmender wants a minute, so we'll do a minute, and then we'll give back to Sam a minute, and then Donny a minute, just so we can hit everybody there. And then if we can go back and forth peacefully, I'll drop it. But until then, let's just try to make sure everybody's being heard. All right, Ron, go ahead.
I am not a big fan of these kinds of free-for-alls. I understand that some people seem to get something out of it. I don't get it. Nobody is listening. Nobody in the audience can hear what's being said. It all seems like a big waste of time to me. But I would like to know, Donny, you accused him of not presenting a quantifiable model or not adequately answering your question. But we're under some pretty severe time constraints here. I mean, this entire debate is only going to last less than 2 hours, including all the audience Q&A. And biology is a complicated field that people study for years and make careers out of. So what would an adequate answer that could be delivered under these time constraints look like?
All right, you going to concede the last 10 seconds?
Sure.
Okay, and then you got the question right, guys? So just hold that for a minute, and then I'll let 1stAmender give a quick thing just so both people on each team are getting a chance. Go ahead, 1stAmender.
Yeah, so I went over specifically several fields of science where it is explaining specifically evolution as an explanatory model. You have genetics and genomics, molecular biology, evolutionary biology, paleontology, embryology and developmental biology, biogeography, comparative genomics, bioinformatics, microbiology and virology, as well as anthropology, all of which say evolution. So I posit that maybe the creationists are right. Maybe the evolutionists are wrong and that it's not evolution. So then what I request is provide an explanatory model for the following scientific fields I've mentioned sans evolution, as in no evolution. How do you explain all the phenomenon?
Okay. We're going to kick it over to who wants to go first? Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just take a few, not
Take the minute. Take the minute.
So yeah, I mean, just listing a bunch of fields of study and saying that the fields of study say something, that's just a blunder, okay? Fields of study don't speak. Bones don't speak. Molecular molecules don't speak. Scientists speak, okay? Data methodologies are hopefully performed. You've already conceded that you cannot perform a methodology on some mysterious, ancient, mythical piece of DNA. You said it doesn't exist. Ron, your partner, conceded that point. It's not because it's difficult, okay? So people speak, the data is interpreted through their perspective worldview. Donny specifically asked you for a methodology, not an assertion. And this is the second time that you've conceded the point. You said, fine, we're just going to grant everything that you believe is false. That's not how a debate is done. You make a point, you got to be able to engage with the point.
That's referring to positing, not
I know you're excited, but respect Mike, the moderator. We're going minute responses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get to clap back as hard as I would as a debater, but I do, yeah, appreciate that. I would like that respect as I'm trying to give you guys the time to be fair on both sides here. Donnie's gonna get a minute, and then you can say whatever you want. You can take your first minute on your team to be prompt with your response. So go ahead, Donnie. I'm starting now.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I'll start my timer too. 1stAmender conceded the debate. It's about genetics. These are points like in the Y chromosome. I've never seen so much dodging in my life. I mean, he's completely destroyed. He names mechanisms like lack of recombination, provides no model. To answer Ron's question, very simple. Show me a paper. We're the ones in our opening statement that are going paper after paper, documenting functions in ERVs, documenting functions in pseudogenes. I literally showed on screen a phylogenetic tree of mitochondrial DNA that shows low diversity, rapid and exponential population growth, variable mutation rates. This is all pointing to biblical time. Where's the thousands of generations? So 1stAmender dodged the Y chromosome question. Which lineage lost what? Which lineage gained what? What happened to the heterochromatin? Show me a paper. Just say, here's a paper. Here's the methodology. Here's the population genetics rate model. He completely dodged. He's trying to go outside genetics now. I mean, come on, like actually engage our arguments. You guys have done nothing but dodging. That's a minute.
All right, Sam. Do you want to take a minute, Sam?
Sam
I
again?
thought he had one
Oh, I
already.
think it's 1stAmender's
Oh,
turn.
sorry.
Or
Yeah, that's
Ron,
what. Yeah, that's what I meant.
right.
I thought I
Or
was
back to
doing
Ron,
yeah.
both to back to back.
King
Hey,
Evo.
my bad.
All right. So you'll
Cameron.
notice that I did not actually concede to the argument. All I said specifically posit, which means to assume, suggest, or propose something as a fact as a basic principle for an argument or a theory. So no, I did not concede to the argument. I'm specifically positing maybe you're right. Assuming you're right, provide an explanatory model for all of these following scientific fields that I've mentioned without any evolution. You cannot do that because the current most explanatory model is, in fact, evolution. Provide an explanatory model. Go ahead.
Okay, let me
All
respond.
right, I didn't know my mic was hot, you guys.
No, that's okay. It is funny. I mean,
Actually, can I?
we're
can
saying.
I take
Well,
a-
yeah, hey, let me just say this, Ron. We'll throw it to you. I would just love just a single answer to the mitochondrial DNA phylogenetic. I think the only answer we got was from Ron, so I appreciate that. And he just asserted, well, mitochondrial Eve goes back 100 to 200,000 years. Yeah, not based on observed mutation rates, not based on overall DNA data. I showed several excerpts from a paper by Dr. Rob Carter in the secular literature showing very low variation in the mitochondrial DNA. I showed the data suggesting low variation in the Y chromosome. I'm still waiting for 1stAmender to simply say, hey, this paper published by these authors, the non-recombining Y chromosome, here's the numbers, here's what lineage lost what, here's what lineage gained what, here's where the heterochromatin went. I mean, we've received no answers to anything.
Are you asking for DNA from something that existed 7 to 8 million years ago?
No, you can reconstruct the ancestral Y chromosome sequence. You can document using
No, you
mathematical
can't
models.
because of the insane
All right,
amounts of mutation
After
that
that
would occur.
sentence,
Are
I
you-
do
what
want to
in the-
give
are
it
you
back
new
to
to this?
Ron here.
Give it to Ron. Maybe he's got an
Ron, I'll
answer.
give you a slight bit of extra time there since there was a grab back.
Well,
But I did
just
want to hear the question.
I'm curious about something. I have a question. So I don't have this data in front of me, but the Pew Research Organization, it's known for doing polls like this. Their most recent poll of working biologists indicated that greater than 90% of working biologists agree that evolution is true. I'm curious if you accept that as a fact, that greater than 90% of working biologists accept evolution, or if you think that there's something wrong with the Pew poll.
Yeah, there's definitely something wrong with the consensus. I mean,
No,
the consensus
not
is
with the consensus, with the claim that biologists believe this.
yeah.
Do you believe that 90% of biologists believe in evolution?
Biologists believe they're related to grass and banana plants, but they don't have answers to the challenges that contradict what they believe.
So
we're looking for answers.
So we have this community of working biologists The
I'm gonna let it roll
vast
right now.
majority.
I'm gonna try to take the training wheels off. I'm gonna let it roll.
And
Because
Sam,
we back and
if
forth.
Sam, if you want to engage this, because I'm
Let
really
Ron
interested in the
continue.
science.
Stop interrupting. Let Ron continue.
Actually, I think it's
First
my
Amender,
minute.
calm down. I know you believe you're related to a banana plant, but just try and calm down.
All right. We don't need a lot
As
of-
Ron and Sam are going at it, maybe First Amender can go and find a paper for me.
It's entertaining, but
Go
we
ahead.
don't need a lot of that, or else we're not gonna get the arguments.
Okay,
Cool.
so you agree that it is in fact true that greater than 90% of working biologists accept evolution, yes?
Yeah, so Ron, I've already engaged with your appeal to consensus. You're repeating.
No, I'm just trying
Let
to
Ron
establish.
finish.
I'm just trying to establish that if we have
Let
any
Ron
common ground here or
answer
not.
the question
First Amender,
or state his question.
I'm
You
not-
need to settle down. Go have some milk. Ron asked me a question. I'm going to answer the question.
didn't even finish.
I do want to also
You literally
include
asked me a question.
Sam and Ron and anyone else. If you do ask your opponents a question and it's not clear that you're going to continue, expect them to respond, and then I'm just going to have to let it go to that.
I did ask him a question, but he's not answering the question.
Yeah,
that
so
I asked.
I'm going to
He's
answer
answering a
the
different
question.
question.
Okay.
You're
so
answering a different question.
First Amender, you got to calm down a little bit. So yes, I can grant you that the vast majority of secular scientists believe in biological evolution.
I didn't say secular scientists. I said working biologists.
Working
Not all of whom are
biologists,
secular.
whatever-
Many of whom are
whatever-
religious.
Ron, listen, whatever you want. I'll give you 99%. I'll
Okay.
give you everyone but the careful reasoning of at least one man. Okay?
How
I'll
about
give
Dr.
you all-
Rob Carter,
Let
a
me-
working marine biologist,
Well, let's Sam
who's the
answer
one who
question
brought up the
there.
mitochondrial?
They can't
Donnie, let
they
Sam
can't
answer
follow
the
a single
question.
question.
If he
My
starts it, let him
point-
finish it.
I'm almost done answering. Okay, I'm almost done. I can grant you whatever number you want. Nothing follows from that because the consensus has a long history of being wrong. Quick quote from someone you like, from Karl Popper. One of Karl Popper's most famous statements on this idea of from his foundational text, The Logic of Scientific Discovery, Ron. He says, there can be no ultimate statements in science. There can be no statements in science which cannot be tested. That was your argument. You guys invoked something that cannot be tested. And therefore, none which cannot in principle be refuted. So definitionally, Ron, you guys right now are in the field of pseudoscience.
No, that's not true.
Factually, you
idiot.
are. If you
Let me explain why that's not true.
yeah, please.
So everything you said that Popper said, that's correct, and I subscribe to it. And you will remember that in my opening, I said there is a chance that the biologists have gotten this wrong. But if you accept that they do believe this and that the Pew people are not lying about it or that they haven't made some methodological mistake in their poll, if you accept that they believe it, then it follows that they are unpersuaded by all of the evidence that you claim to have, right?
That doesn't follow.
It doesn't follow that they're
No, that doesn't follow.
Either that or they haven't seen it, right?
Well, no, so I'm a Christian, so I'm going to appeal to something much broader. I think it's a worldview issue.
And my point is,
Okay, it's a
if you
worldview.
claim to have all this
So it doesn't
evidence that's
follow.
going to overthrow the status quo, why don't you go
Not
present it to
necessarily.
the biologists and see if you can persuade them?
So that's another mistake, because now you're committing what's called a no true Scotsman fallacy. By you're only classifying a biologist as those who agree with you.
No,
That
no,
would be
no,
a
no.
silly.
No, that's
That would be
absolutely
a
not true.
silly.
That's not what that
Yeah,
presents.
That is
that's what
absolutely not
right?
true.
So
If you
there
provide, Sam, if
First
you
Amender, you need to
provide,
settle down, bud. You
Sam,
really,
if you provide specifically to the evolutionary biologist an
Yeah.
explanatory model that possesses a greater explanatory power
Yeah,
than
we've
already done that.
evolution,
We've already done that.
you got one.
then you would be, well, then why are you
You got
not-
a model that you
let me
dodged.
respond to that. So
Yeah.
we made a
Where is
distinction.
your consensus?
Calm down. I made a distinction. Okay, or what Ron might understand as a line of demarcation between a high quality science which can be observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable. Those are the lines of evidence that we are arguing tonight. You guys are bringing inferential, historical, low quality sciences. Your argument was literally an assertion and then said, well, I'm going to concede it for the sake of argument.
Yeah.
You've conceded the debate twice, bud.
He doesn't even
Okay,
realize it.
so
But
I said
perhaps
posit
Three,
for
three
once again.
times,
If you
actually,
Google what
because you didn't
posit
engage with
means,
my argument.
I can
Three
engage in a
contestants
thing
so
referred
far.
to as a hypothetical.
Okay,
and
give
so
us the paper.
I posited that concept. I
So
provided
you're
you
not here
two
to debate?
papers right at the beginning.
First Amender, give
You're
us
not
the
here to
paper
debate?
you
that lays out
instances
a
of the
model.
exact Y chromosome and why you have exhibit specific
you're
telomere
not here to
functions
debate?
where
What's
it
the
does literally
paper?
recombinate.
What's
So
the
you're
name of the
not here to
paper that
debate?
has the model documenting a lack of recombination in the
Yes,
Y
there is-
chromosome? Explain.
there's-
The beginnings of your sentences are starting in the middle of
so
mine.
I'll go ahead
Give
and
the paper.
provide it in your chat here so you
Okay.
can see it for yourself. Here is specifically telomeric sequencing promoting cross chromosomal rearrangement between the multiple mechanisms. And then the secondary, if you're curious as to how you can have recombination of two completely separate
does that paper
chromosomes into
say?
a single point, it would have to
What
create
does that
a
paper
functional
say?
single chromosome. And so that has been replicated in yeast.
Take a breather,
So
First
this is
that
Amender.
paper
Take a
say?
breather.
Hold on, you're
What does
asking
that paper say?
specifically for that
Yeah.
information.
You're still
I'm
dodging.
providing you
I
that
want to make sure that you
What
read
is
How
that
is that a
paper.
dodge? I'm
What
giving
does
you
that
the
paper
paper
say
you asked for.
about the loss of heterochromatin in the pan lineage? What does it say about
I
the
say-
loss of
so-
heterochromatin?
Okay, so after he explains this, before you guys ask your next question, let him put a bow on it so that you're not asking a question as he's at the tail end of it. And regardless of if you think he's going to go on a lot longer, let's just give it a quick chance. That way he can feel comfortable doing the same.
And
It's
Mike,
not a
is it
fight
okay if
fight
I
fight.
reiterate it?
this is an
Hey,
explanation.
Mike, is it okay if I reiterate it in 10 seconds? I won't interrupt.
Oh,
And that
Jesus
way the
Christ.
audience can see if he
Reiterate
answered
your
it or not.
question or the
Yeah,
answer
I'll
to his
reiterate my question in 10 seconds. He gets an uninterrupted response.
All right. Well, I'll give him a minute 30 seconds if you're going to do that.
Okay, so it's going to be
be
a real
fair.
quick. I'm going to reiterate. Where in that paper that you posted in the private chat, what does it say about the loss of heterochromatin in the pan lineage in the chimpanzee and bonobo Y chromosome? What does it say about why, how, when, where that was lost? Go ahead.
You cannot determine specifically that point, and that's fine. You're asking specifically for DNA that would have existed 7 to 8 million years ago.
Yeah, that's
DNA
kind of
does
like
not exist
asking
that far back. What we can observe is at least look at our those that share the most common lineage and then observe the DNA genomic sequencing. You are specifically cherry picking the Y chromosome, which is a very, very tiny part, and it is specifically
No, I already
known for
explained.
having
It's the
more
differences that make the
mutations than that of the
difference.
rest. What's wrong? Why can't you just let me talk?
Because you're
I
dodging.
mean, you're asking for
Regardless
the
of the
explanation,
answer
and I
that
provided to you. You're like,
he's
no,
got-
no,
You're
no,
right.
stop talking.
30
Don't
Mike,
give
you're
me
right.
evidence.
Go ahead.
We
Let
don't want to
him
hear the
finish. Let
evidence.
him
Hold on.
finish.
I got a shill for my audience. You know you're being disingenuous here. You know it. That's why you specifically picked the Y chromosome and not the X chromosome.
No, I've been
knowing
asking you about
it's
the
very
mitochondrial
clear
DNA.
similarity.
I've been asking you about the mitochondrial DNA. Why is there such
yeah,
low?
it's extremely similar across various different creatures and eukaryotes. You're talking about a mitochondria that exists.
So how come the
at a
mitochondrial
eukaryotic
DNA
level.
goes back to a single woman 4,500 to 6,000 years ago based on
What?
mutation rates? Why does the mitochondrial DNA, listen, okay, because maybe you're taking a nap during these
All right.
questions. Why does the mitochondria, I showed the phylogenetic tree on the screen twice. Can you reiterate my points on that?
There's a simple answer to that.
All right.
Well, I want to see if First Amender was listening. The mitochondrial
You got
DNA
next,
phylogenetic tree that I had on screen. I mean, I could pull it up again, but I don't think Mike wants his screen sharing right now.
If it's just a question. would be
Hold
great.
on. Do you believe that the mitochondrial Eve is
Yes.
like stop? I didn't even finish the fucking question. You're answering yes. Shut
the
up.
fact,
Hey,
the
you're
fact that
crashing
you're
out.
doing
Yes,
F-bombs
I'm
means
He's
crashing
crashing
out.
out.
You're being an
He's
idiot.
literally
You're being an
crashing
idiot.
out.
Stop
So
being an idiot.
Calm down. I know you're
So I'm
excited.
going to
Calm
ask
down.
you once again, do you believe
be
that
okay.
mitochondrial Eve was literally the woman Eve in Genesis?
That's what I was presenting the whole time that you were taking a nap. Observe mutation rates based on these pedigree studies like the Parsons paper. Put Eve back 6,000 years ago. The mitochondrial DNA phylogenetic tree that I showed on screen shows 6,000 years worth of DNA differences. Separating any two people from Eve is roughly 20 to 30 DNA differences. If Eve lived 100 to 200,000 years ago, like you believe, there
did
should
not
be a
answer my
lot more
question.
mutations. Why aren't there more mutations?
You're
Go
not
ahead.
answering my question. I'm asking.
I just
you
said
once
yes,
more.
it's the
Directly
biblical
answered your
Eve.
question, bud.
Okay,
Directly
you
answered
believe.
your
Okay, so
question.
you believe that it is biblical Eve.
Yes.
Why
Okay.
Eve and not Noah's wife?
No, well, first of all,
He's
you
not
could stop-
answering
I mean,
my question,
you
Mike.
could-
He's
you
not
could
answering.
stop
I asked
right
him,
there.
why isn't
The
there more
Adam and
mutation?
Eve, the Adam and Eve are not referring to a physical human group of people.
I know the argument. That's the assertion. You're dodging. If what
So
you're
then why
saying
do you
is true,
think that
if
the
what you're saying is
mitochondrial
true and
Eve
it's
is
not
talking
actually,
about the same
I know you're
thing
excited.
as
The beginnings of
literal
your
Eve?
sentences are starting in the middle of mine.
This
You
is
know you've
actually
lost.
wild that
It's a
you
very
think
basic question.
that's
It's
So
a
real
very
quick, real
big.
quick.
I think
just
we need to go back to
idiotic.
1 minute.
Yeah,
we need to go back to 1 minute.
We never
response.
left that. You guys just started interrupting each other, and I thought we might be able to get through. But anyways, like that's why I said overtly, I'm gonna let it go for a second because we didn't talk about leaving it. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back to the minute. But I do want to clarify for the audience if Donnie, you are, as 1stAmender was just saying, conflating or equating the two things, mitochondrial Eve with the actual Eve. I think that was a point that maybe could be clarified if he's confused about it. Was that 1stAmender? Did I get that right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, if you're
I'll give him a minute to respond to that, and then I gotta let Ron talk for 2 minutes. I think that's fair.
Okay, that's fair. So if you could, Mike, just let me screen share so the audience can see what I'm referring to.
All right, I just started
Okay.
the time.
Okay, let me start my timer too, because I got to get all this. This is a mitochondrial DNA phylogenetic tree. The evolutionary position is the out of Africa model that mitochondrial Eve goes back 100 to 200,000 years. Okay, so the biblical position is no, this is biblical Eve. Eve goes back roughly 6,000 years ago. What does the data suggest? Well, let's look at the data. You can look at dozens of pedigree studies. The Parsons paper is one of them. You see that the mutation rate is fast. It's about one every few generations, low diversity, okay? 20 to 30 separating people from Eve, max 140 in these deep lineages. Mutation rates are variable. All of this points to Eve going back 6,000 years. Where in the evolutionary model do you have an Eve of all people on the planet going back 6,000 years? You don't. So my question is, if what 1stAmender is saying is true, why is there not mutation saturation? Why is there not thousands of generations and hundreds of mutations in the mitochondrial chromosome? Go ahead.
All right, close your. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the human population wasn't
Started the time right now. After your minute, Ron, 2 minutes. Just a reminder. Go ahead. Starting it over.
Yeah. So the mitochondrial Eve is not referring to a literal Eve. What it is referring to is that there was an overall human population where you would have had thousands of individuals, not one. That's not physically possible from a genetic perspective. Mitochondrial Eve is simply happening because that is the woman where their maternal lineage never went extinct. So what you would have is hundreds of thousands of years of lots of different mixing lineages. They all die off. Only one line survives. That would be mitochondrial Eve, but thousands would have been existed. So that would be an example. Say, for example, if we observe Neanderthals, Neanderthals don't fit at all in the biblical account. But that, so a good example is like if Alice's descendants were alive, but then their maternity died out. And Beth, their maternity died out. Carol, their maternity died out. Dana, their maternity died out.
All
but
right.
Eve maternally survived in their line.
Mike, can
Well,
I get a minute
understand?
to be fair? Because there's a lot
to
there.
be fair, I gotta let Ron talk right now. That would be fair. Because every
I
time
don't
I've
even know
been
what I would say. This
trying to do it.
discussion has just spun so wildly out of control that I don't even know what to do here. Except I'm genuinely curious. Why do you think mitochondrial Eve is Eve, biblical Eve, and not Noah's wife?
Are you?
Because we're all descended from Eve, but then God did this big cosmic reset, right? And then there was this second bottleneck, which is Noah's wife. I don't even think she had a name, did she? So
I can answer that if you'd like.
yeah, no, I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah,
All
well, it's the same reason
Minute.
why chromosome Adam is technically why chromosome Noah, because it would be Noah off the ark with the flood bottleneck. But
Yeah.
Eve, you'd have like in that phylogenetic tree, Ron, that's worldwide mitochondrial DNA from all sorts of women on the planet. That whole tree would basically represent Eve, but within that tree, you'd see that bottleneck event where you have Eve's well, you'd have Eve roughly 1600 years later. You'd have Noah's wife, like you said, their 3 sons, but their 3 wives. So Noah's 3 daughters-in-law would have that mitochondrial DNA. But how closely
wait. What? 3 daughters-in-law?
Right. Well, because Shem, Ham, and Japheth would have 3 wives, right?
Sure.
Shem, Ham, and Japheth are
where
Noah's
did they come from?
daughters. Well, they would have came from the pre-flood world. They married Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and the haplogroups on that tree, L, M, N, and R. Isn't it interesting that we have 3 or 4 major haplogroups, yet the Bible says that all people today go right back to Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their 3 wives. Their 3 wives would have mitochondrial DNA,
so
which would then spread to Europe, China, Asia, and the rest of the planet.
That was the time there. I want to give an equal response here to Sam. If he has anything to say, I'll put a minute on the clock, and then we'll give it back to 1stAmender or Ron to respond.
I mean, yes and no. I do have another argument that I'd like to be engaged with, but yeah, I mean, I don't mind kicking this back to Donny. I'll give my time to Donny right now.
45 seconds.
Okay, 45 seconds. Back to what 1stAmender was saying, and then yeah, eventually we can kind of put a bow on this. Like Mike said, we'll let Sam or someone else pick another topic. Mitochondrial DNA. What he's missing is coalescence. There's no such thing as you'd need random mating in the past to get one single Eve in the evolutionary model. But historically, especially in the out of Africa model, you'd have people marrying within their tribes. You're not going to have random mating where like today you get someone from Australia who could marry someone in America or Canada, someone in Europe. Historically, you wouldn't have that. So you're not just going to get one single female lineage. But what he completely dodged is the fact that no, it comes down to DNA diversity. It's very low, on average 20 to maybe 30 between any 2 people separated from Eve. The mutation rate is very fast. So how long does it take to accumulate those differences? Just 4,000 to 6,000 years. The question is, where is the evolutionary model? Where's the thousands of generations in mitochondrial DNA? There should be many more mutations, but there's not.
Ron or 1stAmender, who wants to take it from here? Minute on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, he's already said that he literally believes that the mitochondrial Eve is literally Eve, which is that. I mean, I'm just actually curious if this applies in other fields of science to him. At what point, physicists at CERN were having a hard time finding the Higgs boson, and so they referred to it as the God particle. Was the Higgs boson literally God?
Do you have a rebuttal to the argument that Donny made?
Man, wow, not answering any of
No,
my
he
questions.
doesn't.
I've provided multiple rebuttals.
This is bad for you, person. This is bad.
Answer my question.
All you did was named a bunch of fields and then said, "Oh, they're all explained
Can't
through
they
evolution."
answer simple questions?
I'll answer
Okay?
the question when you're done. Dude,
Just wanted
this
to
guy
keep
needs
this
some
between
milk. Check it
Sam
out.
and 1stAmender
What
for
a
a
clown.
second. 1stAmender, restate the question for the audience in case it
So
got lost
he
real
asked-
quick.
Okay. You
He asked if
said,
the
Okay,
Higgs
actually, what's
boson
better?
particle
What's better? I'll
was
let
God.
Sam steelman it.
oh yeah,
So,
let's have Sam ask the question and Steelman it. Yeah.
Right. So he asked if the Higgs boson particle was God. He scoffed a little bit that we believe something based on an argument that Donny gave. So to answer your question, no, we can say that God is that which is ultimate, fundamental, a mind and creator. So God would not be a Higgs boson particle. That's kind of silly for you to even ask that question, being that you're so hostile towards what we believe, but apparently you don't know. But I asked you a question. I asked you if you have a rebuttal to the argument that Donny made. Donny made an argument. You ran over to a particle accelerator and you asked if something was God.
Well,
Yeah, he requested
I have a
specifically
rebuttal.
that I explain the mechanism, and I provided a very detailed explanation to the exact mechanism, and then he asked for some papers requesting where you have got that information, and then I provided the
Argument that
exact
he
papers
made.
All right, Sam.
that posits that exact information. I don't know what
Before-
else you want from me. Now,
Hold
here's
on
the problem.
1stAmender. Hold
If
on.
you can acknowledge, if you can acknowledge that the Higgs boson is not literally God, despite the fact that physicists called it the God particle, isn't it fair to say
Stupid
that
argument.
when
The debate topic is
This is
genetics,
the
by the
fair
way.
to say,
stupidest thing I've ever
shut
heard.
up.
Mike,
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
remind
Finish.
First Amender the debate topic is
Scott.
It is
genetics?
an analogy.
All
Do you
right.
not
I know you're
understand a
excited,
simple
First
analogy?
Amender, but you're not
It is-
answering
It
One more
anything.
is,
time.
but I'm gonna
One more time.
let
One more
Ron
time.
respond
It's
to
a
Sam
dodge.
before this point is lost.
I didn't even. I did. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't.
mean,
No,
there's no
finish
point.
my
I'm
question.
going,
Move
I'm
on.
going to
I
use
didn't
my
even-
time here to
Yeah.
cry foul, because even though I don't fully agree with all
Say that
of,
again, Ron.
I'm going to
Start
cry
over,
foul.
please. I didn't hear the first sentence, the first part of your sentence.
He's gonna use the
I'm
time
going
to
to
cry
use
foul.
my allotted time to call foul.
Okay.
Hear that?
Yes, thank you.
And the foul I'm going to call is that both of you are interrupting Amender while he's in the middle of answering your questions. And as a result of doing that, you are missing a lot of the valid points that he's making. And the valid point that you're missing most recently is that the Higgs boson that he brought up sounds like a non sequitur, but he was using it as an analogy. Because just because scientists attach a label to something doesn't mean that you can read into that label any kind of greater meaning. So just because scientists discovered that all human lineages trace back to a single human female 150,000 years ago, that is the scientific consensus.
No, not 150,000. That's
That is
based
the
on
scientific consensus is 150,000 to 200,000 years ago.
How do they get the 150,000?
I have no idea. I'm not a
Exactly.
biologist, but
Right.
That's the point.
That is the scientific consensus. Just because they called her mitochondrial Eve.
We've addressed
Yeah,
Doesn't
but
the
Ron,
mean that
consensus,
she
Ron.
is
I brought
Eve.
this point up to you
3
5
times
years ago
now.
when we debate. I brought this point up and I brought up all these.
You
There's
bring it
at
up
least
every time you
5
debate.
Well, exactly. So why don't you guys have an answer if I bring this
Right.
up every time? There's at least 5 pedigree-based studies. Parsons is a well-known one.
Well,
Based on known observed mutation rates, Eve goes back just 6,000 years ago. Based on overall genetic diversity, problems with coalescence, you can't get Eve 100 to 200,000 years. They calibrate the data. They say, oh, well, the mutation rate's fast. But we know evolution's true. We know humans share a common ancestor with chimpanzees. So let's look at the differences and we get a slow right, but fixation equilibrium demolishes that. So why don't you guys answer the question?
Look,
why is the mutation rate fast?
Yeah, so
why is there low diversity if
How-
Eve goes
how
back
we
100?
determined-
It's like I can't even finish a single question without First Amender jumping in. The question is this: the
'Cause I have the answer.
mitochondrial chromosome, we understand the mutation rate is fast. Go read the Parsons paper. There's at least 5 others you could read on that, okay? And why is there low diversity if Eve goes back 200,000 years ago?
So can I take that?
Yeah, full minute to
Yeah, go ahead.
respond. The other 2 guys just don't interrupt. We'll mute both of you, and then we'll give it back the moment that time is done. So don't cut them
I
off at the
don't
last 40 seconds.
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. But when I search for mitochondrial Eve, this AI summary comes up that says mitochondrial Eve is the most recent common matrilineal ancestor of all living humans, meaning all humans descended from her through an unbroken female line. She lived in Africa around 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. Now, that may be wrong, but that's what an AI gets out of doing this web search and compiling all the data. And so by default, I, as somebody who doesn't have expertise in biology, accept that as the scientific consensus, if not the actual truth. Now, the burden then is on you if you want to argue that this AI got it wrong, or if I'm pretty sure that if I went to Wikipedia, that it would have the same information there. Why have all these sources gotten it wrong?
Because they're calibrating the data since they assume evolution's true. Again, why?
Why would an
if the-
AI assume evolution is true if it wasn't?
Well, you got to ask AI the right question. Ask AI, how do they get the 100 to 200,000 years? And then they're going to say, well, it calibrates
If
the
you want to
known-
adjourn and reconvene with another debate specifically on mitochondrial Eve and give me a chance to do my homework on that,
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
happily engage you on that. But all of these details are really beside the point.
No, it is, but well, I just want to say this, Ron. I got to say, I think you're wrong there because the question is, does genetics support creation or evolution? We've shown that the genetic data in the Y chromosome suggests that humans and
No, you
chimps are
haven't.
not
You haven't shown
related.
that. You have not shown that.
I've shown the paper that
You have
suggests
not. No, you haven't.
the Y chromosomes are less than 30%
Let
the
me
same.
explain why you haven't.
Okay. And the mitochondrial DNA, because you just said you'd have to come back and prep for
I understand.
That's a major point, though.
All
That's
of
a
this
major
is
point
going
on our
way
side.
over my head. I don't understand these details. I'm not a biologist. I've not studied biology. Amender understands this stuff much, much better than I do.
But he doesn't understand it very well. I can tell you that.
Okay,
Anybody who understands it looks at 1stAmender and
that's a
says,
low bar, but that
I mean, I'm not a biologist. I just read.
yeah, you read and misunderstand what you read, and you still haven't explained anything about the heterochromatin. You're not explaining why there's low diversity in the mitochondrial DNA.
I'm
you
not
haven't
a
explained
biologist.
functional ERV.
He's not a biologist.
I've already explained that.
Are you a
Okay,
biologist?
well, then I guess the debate. I've studied this for
Donny,
years and years and
are you a
years.
biologist?
I'm not a biologist. I don't
Okay,
have
so
to be
you're
a
not a
biologist to know
biologist,
these
Sam. You're
arguments.
not a
though.
biologist.
But I quoted papers and showed papers written by biologists.
I'm getting to that.
But nothing follows from that, Ron. Do you have a PhD in communication?
Why can't you guys, and Ron, because you have a PhD, that suggests you have critical thinking skills.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, and I like you, I love you, so I don't take this the wrong way, but we did debate the Adam and Eve question 5 years ago. I brought up mutation rates. If you go watch my opening statement, then I brought up a bunch of these papers. But it's always the same with you guys. Nobody ever has the answers. It's like, well, I'll look into. It's like you guys don't want to look into it because you know that it contradicts evolutionary theory, and you guys are invested in being related to grass and ladybugs. So what's the reason that no evolutionists ever have answers?
The reason is that this forum, where we're in an adversarial environment under time constraints, putting on a show for an audience, that is not the venue to litigate these kinds of questions. The venue where those kinds of questions are litigated is in the scientific journals. Now,
yeah, I want to respond to that.
Yeah, you've done a gish gallop of papers where you said that supports your position, but the biology community disagrees with you.
So I really only showed a few.
You're not a biologist. Sam's not a biologist. I'm not a biologist. Amender's not a biologist.
Yeah, so hold on.
The people who are biologists,
yeah, Ron, I want to
say
respond
that
to that.
your papers are not sufficient.
Wrong, because one of the papers.
Evolution.
The paper that Sam, I'm going to hand it to you, but the paper from the conventional literature on mitochondrial diversity and the Eve consensus sequence, that paper was written by Dr. Rob Carter, a young Earth creationist marine biologist. He agrees with me, not you. And that paper was from the conventional literature.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to point out, Ron, really quick. I mean, you've known that this debate's been coming for quite a while. You accepted the debate with 1stAmender. You're familiar with Donny. He's been making these same arguments for a long time. I mean, just as a bystander, I can see that none of you guys ever deal with these arguments, and it's not like it's a surprise.
Because that's not our job.
So, it is when you come to debate evolution and you debate Donny.
Well, then I have an answer for you.
Argument for so long. Okay, so yeah, I mean we're very underwhelmed.
Amender has an answer for you.
So let me ask you the question that.
Are you not interested in the answer?
Let me ask you.
You've been beating us for not giving you an answer, and now Amender says he has one.
I think why do you not want to hear it? Anyone here at this point?
I concur with that. I would like Sam to finish whatever he's saying, and then if 1stAmender wants to respond to something, I'll let him start that off by steel manning what the question is.
Okay. Yeah,
so that's fair. Back and forth.
Yeah, so the question here that's on the table is how was it determined that these mutation rates are what they are, or the difference between that which is observable, a pedigree mutation rate, and a calibrated phylogenetic mutation rate? That's the question on the table. One is a high quality line of science, that which can be observed, tested, repeated. The other one is just a just so story. But a lot of people believe it, Ron.
So I want to say something about this distinction you've been making about high quality science and low quality science. That is an artificial distinction that's been introduced by creationists. It is not an actual valid distinction. There is no such thing as high quality science and low quality science. There is just science. There is just the process of finding the best explanations that account for all the data. And now let's hear Amender's answer to the question that you've been insisting you really want to know the answer to.
Okay, so start it off by tell
Yeah,
us
so
what his
just to
question
start
was.
off, FYI, when I'm referring to mitochondrial Eve, it's not referring to literally Eve in the same way
know.
that the Higgs
We know.
boson is not referring to a God particle, right? So it's not literally Eve, because that was your claim earlier.
Because
He
it
made an
is.
argument.
So how do we know specifically? Okay, you're saying it is, but then
Yeah,
it
he
isn't.
made an
Right?
argument.
No, it is. I
Contradiction.
already demonstrated.
Good
Now let's see
contradiction.
what your answer is.
Anyway,
Go ahead.
so mitochondrial Eve, how do we know that it was 150 to 200,000 years ago?
Was
Okay,
that what the
so let's
question
say,
was
for
right
example,
there? That Sam asked?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, okay. So let's say, for example, that we observe people that are alive today, right? Where we have, like, person A related to, their son, and then their grandmother, grandfather. We could observe that there are slight mutations that are dictated on a linear clock. From this, we use that molecular clock. Okay. It is the time equal to the number of mutations over the mutation rate. Okay.
pedigree?
So you asked specifically for the math
pedigree
function
rate?
for that. You asked specifically for the math function for
This is a
that.
clarification
it is
question.
the number of mutations
This is a
over the
clarification
He
mutation
just wants to give a speech. There's no
establish
clarifying
a
What
question.
with
common-
me, bud? You're
You're
just getting into
asking-
the
Reading from
You're
AI.
crashed
You're
out
reading from
again.
AI.
If that-
How come you
Asking
can
a
never give an answer in
clarification
20
question.
seconds?
We're
You just
gonna
start
get-
reading an essay.
We're going to get to the
reading a
closing
speech.
statements in 2 minutes, so I just let it finish, and you
No,
guys will have the last word since they started.
This is a point of clarification, and he crashed out. When
Yeah,
he
you-
No,
invoked,
you're
no
asking
idea.
for
When he
an
invoked,
answer,
you're
and
crashing
I'm
out
not
again,
getting
bud.
anything from.
You're literally
from the
crashing
You don't know
out.
how to have a
moderator.
free flowing
Answer it.
discussion.
I
You're
can't
just
answer
reading
a
an
single
essay.
question.
Hey, this guy's unhinged. Okay, I'm asking
I'm
a
not
point of-
unhinged. I'm just
totally
explaining it, and then
This is
I'm
bad for
notably
you.
upset
You-
at
you
the
lost
at the
me.
willfully
Unhinged.
ignorant people
Yeah,
here.
you're literally insane. So I'm asking you, when you invoke
Dude, I'm
this
literally
mutation rate,
explaining it. You
Can
didn't
you
even
stop?
understand
We're-
it.
You didn't
even
explain.
let me
You were
finish.
reading an
Just let
essay
me
from something
finish.
that
Hey,
someone
Let
sent
me
you.
finish
Just
it.
answer the question
Let
in
me
20 seconds.
finish.
Why is it a
Okay,
speech for you?
real
every
Zero
day?
quick.
self-control.
So
What an embarrassment.
How do we know? And then
No, when I'm
answer.
asking when he invokes the mutation rate,
I
I'm
was
asking
explaining
if he's
it
talking.
step
There
by
you go
step.
again.
Is
Can
he
someone,
allowed
like,
to ask a clarifying
can you
question
guys
to you
mute
first?
this
You're
guy?
so
No, I'm
insecure.
asking
He's totally
Just
unhinged.
allow him to
I'm
ask the
trying to
question, and then you
explain
can
your
If I
continue.
question.
wasn't
You
so
already
you're
asked
sure
trying
the
it
really
would
question.
hard
do
to
this
fail
and
at it.
derail
Moderator.
into this.
Moderator,
Yeah,
can you
Mike,
moderate
can
Okay,
you
these
yeah,
two?
mod?
I'm gonna have to mute everybody here. All right,
Just have a clarification question.
let's get the clarification out of the way because I don't want to waste the last 3 minutes that we had. Now a minute and a half on everybody saying you're interrupting me. So
Why
go
am I
ahead.
muted when I'm
Well,
You-
because
you
I
need
want
to-
to
there goes
hear what the
again.
clarification is before you complete, and I'm going to
Hold
give
on.
you the
If
full
they're
amount of
they're
time.
asking a question, I'm explaining it rather than you muting
Why are
him,
you still
being
talking?
argumentative and
Why are you still
interrupting.
Because
talking?
You're instead muting
it erupted
me.
into chaos because you won't just let the clarifying happen now after we've already gotten to the point of
Oh
the
my
interruption.
God.
So
Hey,
it's already been
that's how you
interrupted.
know-
It's already been.
This is
So I'm
ridiculous.
trying to
that's
just
how you
hear
know
it.
they
Okay.
took the L right
I'm
here.
just trying
So
to hear it so
we-
that that's the last
I
clarifying
want to
point.
finish what I was trying
Let
to
him
say.
ask the question first. Why are you so insecure?
He's
Let him
just
ask
running.
the
Because I'm
clarifying question,
explaining
then
the first
respond.
question you
Guys,
asked.
he
You
ran
asked, how do
away.
we know it came to 150 to
Ran
200,000
away.
years ago?
I'm asking
You
your
asked
question.
that, so I'm explaining
Okay,
it.
so
Can I
real
ask
quick,
the
real quick,
question?
how much longer do you think that would take before the clarifying question? Just so I can gauge which
I
one's going to
wrote
come
down
faster.
a total of
Hey.
3 paragraphs here. I got
Mike,
3
You mean
sentences.
AI
in.
sent
Mike,
you a
hold
total
on,
of
Sam.
3
No,
paragraphs?
Yeah.
I read.
You got how
I
many
wrote
sections?
I'm
it.
sure
Okay,
you
okay.
did,
I
buddy. I'm
googled
sure
it,
you
looked
did,
it
buddy.
up,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there it is.
First amendment, real
Can you
quick.
mod?
Yeah. What
Cool.
period in through did you get? You said, or what paragraph?
Yeah,
in?
so I just have a point of a clarification
I have
question.
3 more paragraphs
Okay,
to
no,
try
no,
to
no, I
explain
don't-
why it was.
I don't know if
yeah,
that's really
don't
gonna
want to
get through.
explain it. Okay, well then the answer is right.
This guy's crashed
There
out.
is no answer that could ever be provided to you because you are not, nor were you ever interested in having a good faith debate on this.
Oh.
It is
What
very
about-
clear to me.
I'm just
Hey,
saying.
You
what
guys
about-
are
For a
obviously
bit of a
dodging
challenge,
every
but-
single position. I sat there and tried to explain it as clear as day that anybody could explain, but both of you showed yourselves in this.
Sam,
video.
can I
Look
have-
at you, what
Sam,
you're
can I have
doing.
one,
Hey,
brother?
Donny, bro, here, you want some?
Bunch of
Yeah.
You want some,
clowns.
Donny?
Okay,
Bunch
so
of
you know what?
Are
We're
you
gonna
done?
we're gonna
He's
move.
crashing out,
We're gonna
boys.
move
He's
into
crashing
the
out.
closing statements. We're gonna move into the
Sorry, I don't
closing
get to ask
statements.
my.
No, we don't have
Oh,
the
thanks,
time.
Mike.
Just for
That's
that,
why
we
I'm
need,
Right on,
we
Mike.
need the
That's
old
why I can't give
trusty.
him
We
the
need
time.
old
Thanks, Mike.
trusty
Oh my
for
God,
this.
We
It's gonna
should
drink.
just
All
go
right.
into
We need
closing
all
statements
trust.
because
No,
it's a waste of
time
time.
thing.
We
It's
have
a
no
time
answers.
thing.
That's
Give me some
atheism in a nutshell, folks. Right there.
Oh God, you guys suck.
That's
Well, it's all the Red Bull and
Some
alcohol you've
content.
been drinking,
That's
First
trash.
Amender. It's why you're crashing
What
out.
a
Okay.
trash
Hey,
argument.
somebody
bro.
call my
Absolute
sponsor
Man,
somebody.
if only,
First
if only,
Amender
if only I
ran
could find
right
the
off.
argument at the bottom
You
of this
guys-
bottle.
Chat, you like
Well, we
this?
get
You
we
liking
get
this,
5-minute
chat?
closing,
Yes,
so we
we
get
do.
5, so he can finish answering with his speech.
But that's
there.
going to be up to Ron if he wants to let First Amender take the last 5 minutes of the
Let
closing.
Ron go. He's at least reasonable.
So we're going to go into closings, 5 minutes and 5 minutes, muted sides on each. You cannot interrupt. You can't laugh. Can't do whatever. No interruptions on that. And then we'll get into the super chats, which there's going to be a lot more fluidity. I'm going to let you guys get a little bit more chaotic, and then I'll bring it back in when we got to get to the next questions. So we've got through the debate, guys. Congratulations.
Did we?
Take a drink for me. I didn't say we got to the bottom of the questions here.
Well, the party's just starting. man.
Yeah, so that's what we just got
That,
clocked
that,
out.
that felt
basically.
pretty unproductive to me, but what do I know?
Well. I can't answer for you guys, and I can't.
Felt productive to me, Ron.
Can't
I
control
love showing the
responses.
world why creation's true and evolution's indefensible. So very productive.
Well,
to me.
I don't think you did that.
Well, leave it up to the
At
audience.
all. Not
I
even
do love you though,
remotely.
Ron, but leave it up to the audience. We'll see.
If
What
we
they
brought
think.
arguments tonight that were not addressed.
Oh, none of them. were.
Okay,
None
so
of it.
wait.
That's
Who's-
because
literally-
the
Yeah, we'll leave
minute
it
that-
up to the audience.
So
that's
And you
because the
didn't even
minute
let
that
me
he
explain the
tried
whole
to,
thing.
to address them, you interrupted him.
okay, First
And the
Amender
minute that
and
I'm
Ron.
trying to explain to you why your arguments weren't
All right.
addressed, you're interrupting
First
me.
Amender and Ron, we're starting your 5 minutes right now. So I'm muting the other two. Please don't unmute yourself and jump in.
Commander, do you want to take this, or you want
Go
me
ahead.
to
It's
take a
starting in
whack at it?
3, 2.
Go for it,
One.
Ron.
I despair for the future of human civilization here. So I opened this by observing that there exists this creationist industrial complex that has been trying for 150 years to fight against the scientific consensus that has been extremely well established. They keep trying to come up with new arguments. They keep coming up with new tactics. You could. I've been studying these tactics for, I think, longer than Amender has. So the fact that this discussion degenerated the way it did didn't come as any surprise to me. I was disappointed, but not surprised. Because one of the tactics is that as soon as somebody on the side of science starts to make a valid point, the creationists interrupt and start going into a gish gallop. Because if they were to slow down and actually start to address these points in a civilized manner, they would lose. But that's the way you have to do it, because that's the way science is done. It's not easy. You can't do it with sound bites. It's complicated. It's messy. And it mostly happens behind the scenes. And it doesn't happen in performative adversarial venues like this. And that's why they're able to use this context to their advantage to make it look like they have valid points, even though they actually don't. And the way you can know that they don't have valid points is because if they did, they would publish papers and convince the scientific establishment that their points were valid, and they would overturn the consensus. But they haven't, despite 150 years of trying. Yes, it is true that all scientific knowledge is provisional, but that doesn't mean that the current consensus is always equally likely to be overturned. Science is not a free-for-all. The overturning of well-established theories, and the theories as well-established as evolution, is extremely rare. It's happened. Overturning a theory as well established as evolution has happened maybe 3 times in the entire history of modern science, which has been going on for about 300 years now, since Isaac Newton published his Principia. So there was Newton himself, then there was relativity, and then there was quantum mechanics, and there was evolution. And those 3 are unique in the history of science. So yes, it's possible that you can overturn evolution, but it would be a huge development. It would be major news, and it's not going to happen here in a YouTube debate. I have 2 minutes left. Amender, you got anything to say? Because
I do.
Okay, go for it.
As for my closing arguments, the question is whether or not the genetics supports creation or evolution. The answer is based on the full body of biological evidence. It is, in fact, evolution. Evolution is not a side theory in biology. It is the framework that makes sense of everything from DNA to fossils. And when we actually look at the data, it consistently points to common ancestry. The Y chromosome argument falls flat on its face. My opponent had argued that human and chimp Y chromosomes are too different to share ancestry, but that misunderstands how Y chromosomes even work. The Y chromosome is one of the fastest changing parts of the human genome because it does not recombine for most of its length. It's passed only from father to son with higher mutation rates and has a small effective population size, making drift stronger. It contains repetitive DNA that causes instability and loses genes and rearranges more easily over time. So the rapid divergence is not a problem for evolution. It's literally what we expect. So importantly, the Y chromosome is less than 2% of the entire human genome. It does not override the genome-wide signal. When we look at the entire genome, the picture changes entirely. The human and chimpanzees show a 98 to 99% genomic similarity. There's aligned coding regions that show exactly that. I provided the chart that showed exactly that. If organisms are separately designed, we shouldn't expect a deep, consistent pattern across the entire genome. We've looked at observing the evidence of fusion site sequences. I discussed with you telomere-like DNA that exists in the middle, not at the end. We've observed direct one-to-one matching with 2 chimp chromosomes and the physical record of shared ancestry within our DNA. You also pointed out that
we're not doing 5 minutes per debater on each side. I just wanted to give you a chance to close it up, but I feel like you got a little bit more there, so I do need to maybe get you to put a bow on it.
All right, finally. So with mitochondrial Eve, then even that is misunderstood. It's not literally that they're the first woman. It means that they're the most recent woman from all living humans inheriting mitochondrial DNA. Using mutation rates and population models, we estimated it lived about 150 to 200,000 years ago, which matches exact early human fossils in Africa. I didn't even get to that. I wasn't able to explain that, but that is what we found. When you look at the full data sets, there's not isolated parts of it. Genetics overwhelmingly supports common ancestry. The Y chromosome is not a problem for evolution. There is not to reject evolution. You would not just have to explain one data set, but all of genetics, all of paleontology, and all comparative biology at once. There is no alternative model. You don't have it.
We're gonna have to do a hard stop there. That was 1 minute and 35 seconds over, so I am gonna give that same respect to the other 2 gentlemen here. Whenever you guys are ready.
Thank you, Mike. Sam, you're going to take it first, brother?
You're muted, buddy.
Sam, you're mute.
Are we good?
Yep.
All right, great. So yeah, Ron, I'm going to bring up your boy Karl Popper again because you've brought him up in your past debates. He says that for a claim to be scientific, it must be testable, meaning that there must be a potential observation that could prove it false. So here he makes the distinction between high quality and low quality science. I understand why your camp would reject that, because your camp cannot prove evolution with a high quality science. Tonight, what did we see? I made an argument. I pointed out that their position would undermine itself. Okay, that wasn't addressed at all, and I explained the collateral damage there. Donny made arguments from the data itself, and those arguments were not addressed with anything more than reckless conjecture. When we asked to press on it, they were not actually engaged with. The icing on the cake was when 1stAmender literally ran by not letting me ask a clarifying question. It's a good time to be a biblical creationist. Donnie.
Amen. How much time was that?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. So I got 5 minutes then, or 5.5 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start it here. Okay. 5.5 minutes. It's going to be fun because now
Oh, you
the
got
crash out.
5 minutes now.
Okay. The crash out, 1stAmender can't interrupt me destroying his point. So no, he did not address the Y chromosome dissimilarity. He made assertions, he made claims, he named mechanisms, but notice every time I would try and ask him a basic question about the model, about backing up his assertions, he would interrupt, he would dodge, he would run. Where's the ancestral Y chromosome reconstruction? We didn't get that. Why do humans have entire palindrome families and gene systems absent in pan? We just, recombination, lack of recombination. Okay. Are you going to back that up? How does a 2-time size difference arise purely by loss or by lack of recombination? Why does the human Y resemble the gorilla Y more than the chimp Y? Where is the rate-based population genetic model? Because 1stAmender is so insecure in his position, we really didn't even get through any of those questions. You could barely get through one. If I remember correctly, I don't think they addressed the mutually interdependent systems argument. Certainly didn't address the Eve, just reciting textbook answers. Again, Eve cannot go back 100 to 200,000 years because the rates are too fast. All they do is calibrate the data. There's a bias in interpreting the data. No, this is a natural reading of the data right here on the screen from the 1,000 Genomes program, the data that is. This was put together by Dr. Rob Carter, who's a young Earth creationist and published on mitochondrial DNA in the secular literature. Okay, what we see on this tree are variable mutation rates. So no, what 1stAmender is saying is wrong. You can't extrapolate backwards in terms of an evolutionary molecular clock, making evolutionist assumptions. This is the HVR haplogroup, okay? Listen closely, 1stAmender. These rates are variable. You have differing size branches. These are mutations over time, going back to the same common ancestor. This entire tree, on average, is 20 to 30 mutations separating people from Eve, and the largest branches are about 140. It's trivial. You can only take this DNA diversity back 4,000 to 6,000 years. How do you actually get? They never backed up their assertion that Eve goes back 100 to 200,000 years ago. Plus, historically, you're not going to have random mating. So you're not going to expect just a single female ancestor like 1stAmender asserted, because you'd have people intermarrying within their tribes. So in a way, you should have multiple mitochondrial DNA lines if deep time evolution were true. Then you bring in Neanderthals. He mentioned Neanderthals. Bring in Neanderthals, Denisovans, bring in Heidelbergensis, and they split off before, apparently, according to evolution. So they'd be accumulating their own independent mutations in the mitochondria. We should have a ton of mitochondrial diversity if evolution were true. They didn't address any of that. Nothing but rescue devices. Neanderthals, they were known to be highly inbred. They would have had mutations in DNA repair enzymes, leading to more mutations accumulating. Faster rates of fixation. They existed in areas that were exposed to more uranium and radiation. That explains why they're different. So no answers to any of that. This is directly from the conventional literature here, showing low diversity in mitochondrial DNA. When it comes to ERVs, pseudogenes, did not get any explanations for how, according to the evolutionary model, we can get endogenous retroviruses if 1stAmender's correct. How do we get ERVs that are functional in embryological development? Notice paper after paper, increasing knowledge. Over 80% of the genome is active. That means these mutations that accumulate, they accumulate in non-neutral regions, leading to rapid and accelerated genetic degeneration. So the mechanisms that they claim to take their fish to fishermen, to take their pond scum to people, they're inadequate. The mutations are largely overwhelmingly deleterious. Here's some questions that 1stAmender will dodge. What is the evolutionary pathway by which an LTR evolved? Show the mutation by mutation pathway. How does random viral insertion produce coordinated development timing? Endogenous retroviruses don't, it's the differences that make all the difference. If deep time evolution were true, we shouldn't find these hierarchical signatures and the strong level of homology in DNA sequences, because mutations over time would actually scramble those signatures. So creationists, we can explain similarities, we can explain dissimilarities. There's also discontinuities in fossil data. He brought up fossil data to run away from the genetic data that absolutely demolishes them.
35
But we find
seconds.
discontinuities there. 10 seconds.
35.
Discontinuities. The chromosome 2 fusion, so-called, is an apomorphy, doesn't help them at all. There we go.
All right. Guys, please don't jump in and start talking about each other's closings just yet. We're going to get into the super chats here. Funnest part of any debate on MDD. This is not an Oxford debate. We're not scoring points. That's more for the audience to kind of take in. But we do the super chats and allow people to respond to those however they want, as long as it's TOS approved. And we got a few here, and I'm sure once we start, there'll be some trickling in. It's 9:13 Central, 10:15 Eastern. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to give about 1 to 2 minutes max per question. And then if you guys go back and forth, please keep it as brief as possible. Don't list off 20 things, just ask a question or answer a question.
Mike, maybe totally up to you to keep it coordinated. What if, let's say the questions for Ron and 1stAmender, they get to respond for 1 to 2 minutes. Sam and I could do an uninterrupted 30-second, just real fast response, and then they get maybe the last 20-second response. And then if the question's for us, and then that way we're not over talking. Just an idea.
That sounds reasonable. The thing is also, I know that no matter what, someone's going to respond to a response, and that's where
True.
it starts trailing. So if it's interesting, I'll let it go for a second, but if it's not, I'm gonna just come in and mute everybody and say, all right, I gotta go to the next question. So it just gets too chaotic. But we'll pull those up now, and we'll also, as y'all are answering the first one, we'll put up a poll here in the chat. So I'm gonna ask the first question, and then I'll work on the poll while y'all are doing that. First one is from Kevin Blackwell Welder. This guy has been dominating the super chats tonight, so expect his name quite a bit. He sends $5. He says, for Dr. Ron, how do you explain the April 2025 Nature study showing chimps and humans differ by 410 million base pairs, not 40 million? So go ahead and respond to that, and then just let me know when you're done. And then if Amender wants to respond as well. I just realized you
Not
stopped
familiar
closing.
with that paper, so I can't respond to that. Amender, do you know that?
I
paper?
don't know off the top of my head.
I have to go read it and do my homework.
Yeah. me
This
too.
is the big problem with all of these kinds of things. There's just so much information out there that no single human brain can contain it all. And so this is where we, the defenders of science, are actually at a disadvantage, because they'll always be able to come up with something, some question about some obscure little thing, and maybe not so obscure, that we just don't know because we're not professional biologists. I mean, you don't have all this stuff at the top of our head. We have to go look things up. So don't, for the audience, they want to claim victory because they've asked us questions that we couldn't answer off the top of our heads, but that is absolutely not the case, because that's not how it works.
So I'm very much aware of that paper. This tells me that evolutionists, they're not up to date on the origins debate. That's why it's easy to refute evolutionists these days. They're not up to the 2024 paper on the most sophisticated analysis looking at the genetics of the great apes and humans. This is a major paper. I mean, this has been talked about everywhere. And then both of these evolutionists, and Ron says, oh, the side of the side of the science is not those who believe they're related to ladybugs and banana plants. We demonstrated that here tonight. The latest data in the 2024 Nature paper, if I'm correct on the one that's being cited, actually shows that when you consider everything, size differences, gaps, copy number variations, both alignable and non-alignable
30
sections
seconds, right?
of the human and chimpanzee genome, the humans, and I understand you're excited, 1stAmender, but allow me to finish demolishing your point.
Agreed. I just said that would be a good idea, but I know we're going to have too much
Yeah, let's
back
make
and
it 7
forth.
minutes instead. We want to hear out.
It hasn't
Well,
been.
first,
but
but
just
I
let it finish.
understand. He's
we wanna be fair,
excited. He
right,
believes
to the
he's
other
Got no
side.
related.
self-control.
He's excited. He believes he's related to banana plants. He was demolished here tonight.
Yeah,
So the
check
overall genetic similarity now is actually about 85% when you consider
clown.
everything between humans and chimps. But you know what? I love the Y chromosome because it's less than 30%. It's the differences that make all the difference. And I'm still waiting for 1stAmender to offer me a sophisticated mathematical model. I'll be waiting a long time, I'm sure, though.
All right.
Can I have a last word here?
Go ahead, and then I'll ask the next
If
question.
if this paper was the breakthrough that you claim, why hasn't it been front page news?
It has been.
Not in any of the papers I've read.
Well, you got to get out of the Arthur books and the Franklin. You got to get into the literature, Ron. Are you, you know, what's your
By the
favorite
way,
Arthur?
right,
Well,
What's
he
your
said-
favorite Arthur
he
book?
says you have to
Christopher?
get into the literature while
it would
also
be
saying
front, if this were
mitochondrial
true, it would be
Eve
front page
is
news on the New
literally-
York
It
Times.
was front page news, Ron.
Not on the New York Times. It wasn't.
It was
'Cause I
everywhere.
do read the Times.
It wasn't in the movie trailers before
No,
you went to the theater to watch Project
biggest.
Hail
It
Mary.
would be the biggest scientific breakthrough
Ron.
in the history of science,
Ron,
and it just
It was
isn't.
hotly discussed.
Ron,
Hotly
the
discussed.
Standing for truth isn't in the literature himself.
Well-
he even said, "How do we get endogenous retroviruses in embryos?" Duh.
No,
it
how do you
exists in
get-
the human genome?
How do you get
Ron.
embryological development as
He
a
literally-
function for ERV? Explain. Hey, show me a paper right now.
An embryological
No,
function.
I got to
you
check.
could either have something that's fit versus not fit to
not an
deleterious.
answer.
If it was deleterious, it would cause them to die off.
It's not
as
an
opposed
answer,
to if it was
bozo.
fit versus do nothing. And
I'm gonna
that's
ask
what
wait, I know
endogenous
you don't like
retroviruses
questions.
do.
Show me your best paper. I want to see a non-functional
I
endogenous
just explained
retrovirus.
endogenous retrovirus. You're like, how
Again,
are
you
they
didn't
in
explain
embryos?
anything. The beginnings of your sentences are
You haven't
starting in the
done
middle of
any-
mine
you-
because
you
you're
have no idea
scared.
what you're
You're a
talking about.
whiny baby. You're a crap. Even your own side in the
Yeah,
live
not
chat
an
has admitted
argument.
that you
I
lost.
literally
You're an
was
embarrassment.
explaining the
So,
argument,
Mike,
and you
I just
didn't
want to
like
ask him a
it, and
simple
then you
question.
had
It'll
to
take me
interrupt
5
every
seconds
moment.
to ask.
Can we go to the
Show me
next
the
question?
best-
You
show
are
me the
really
best
falling
moron.
down in
It's a
your
very
moderately
simple question.
duties here.
Show me the best paper that takes a non-functional endogenous retrovirus.
Hold on.
Look at the
Hey,
crash out
Hey,
loser.
but I'm
From
not
non-functional.
gonna. I gotta mute you too, man. I'm
You-
not gonna let that go back and forth too much longer. Like I said, I was looking through to start this poll right now, so that I was taking a second to mute both of you. I was trying to do that equally, couldn't get it done. Relax, Amender. So the thing is that's gonna be probably a separate debate topic. We don't got time to go through and have him point out a source like that in this super chat section. We're just gonna get to the next super chat and appreciate you guys just bearing through it. I understand, you know, there's points you want to get to, but it could come up on one of these other questions. So let me know. There is one that was missed from Even Lord here at the last debate, but it is relevant. He paid money for this, so it's relevant to this one. What is the basis for objective truth, and how is it justified? Matt, since I did cut you off, or Donnie, since I cut you off, is it Matt or Donnie? I've been calling you Donnie this whole time.
Donnie. Matt was my partner last time.
Got it, raw
It's
Matt.
an
That's
honest
right.
mistake.
Okay. I was feeling bad.
Come
for
on,
a minute.
James.
Yeah.
Get it together.
I'll let you answer this one first. What is the basis for objective truth? How's it justified? We'll let Ron or Amender respond, and if Sam wants to get in on that as well, you're welcome to.
Okay, could we? I got to run to the restroom real quick. I've been drinking a lot of water. Can Sam take this on my side, and then I
Totally.
can?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just you know, cut you off right in the middle of that. Want to give it
No,
to
you're
Sam?
good.
Go for it.
You're
Who
good,
was
brother.
it for? Was it for us?
It's just for the all four debaters, I would suppose.
Yeah, so I mean, we would say truth is that which comports with the mind of God, and that's going to be a difficult epistemological question. So if you don't have a foundation for fact, then you're not really going to be able to say that anything is true in an objective way. And on those terms, if your foundation is something that you could be wrong about, then anything built on that foundation could be false also. And that's going to be the problem within our opponent's system here. They have no foundation for fact, and if they understood the argument that I make, they have no reason to trust their cognitive faculties at all. But here they are. Yeah, go ahead.
The foundation of all logic and
Can
fact
I
is a
take this one?
non-anthropomorphic source. Done.
Can I take this one?
Yeah, it
Go
sounds
for
like
it,
he's
Ron.
done.
Do you see this coffee cup? Sam, do you see
Yeah,
this
can
coffee
you?
cup?
What did,
Oh,
what did
do you
Bertrand
see? Do
Russell
you
say
see this
about
coffee
that?
cup?
Yeah, I see a fact that was
Amender, do you see
created
do you see this
I
coffee
see the
cup?
coffee cup.
Mike, do you see it?
I'm raking the poll right now.
You see me tapping my finger against it, right? We all agree that there's a coffee cup here, right?
No, we agree within the Christian worldview that that coffee cup is intelligible. But within your system,
Do you agree that there's a coffee cup here?
Yeah, I believe that there within the
Okay.
Christian worldview, yes, that coffee cup is intelligible.
You can't
Yeah,
even
I mean,
admit
this
a
is
simple thing
right.
like there's a coffee cup here.
It's not that simple, Ron.
Okay,
I mean,
well, I think it is that
books that have
simple.
been
And mind you, I ground
Because
all facts and
the-
logic on the basis of a non-anthropomorphic source.
The best
you
explanation,
can try that.
the
A
best
rock?
explanation for the fact
A
that
rock?
everybody that I
Sam,
encounter
let him
who
finish
is
his
not
question
trying
and
to obfuscate a
response, please.
point will agree that there's a coffee cup here is that there is in point of actual fact a coffee cup here. That's just the most straightforward explanation for what I observed. That's it.
So yeah, a coffee cup is not made of coffee cup. It's made of smaller particulars that are
But they're called atoms.
right. Well, and then even atoms, you're going to have atoms are unified. Those are particulars that are unified, and they consist of smaller states of unity. And you're going to
I
get
have
down
no
to
idea what you mean by
subatomic.
unified and states of unity.
Is an atom made of atom?
Atoms are made of subatomic particles.
Great. So subatomic particles that are then unified. So we're invoking states.
I don't know what
of
you
unity.
mean by unified. Subatomic particles are,
you
if
don't
you
know
really
what
want to get into
unified-
the weeds here, we're going to end up in quantum
Yeah,
mechanics
wait,
and quantum
Ron.
field
You don't know
theory,
what unified means.
not in the context that
So
you're
when you
using
have
it.
when
No.
you have a plurality of particulars, whatever those might be, if they are working in unison, then they are unified in some way, right? Like the letters in the
No.
alphabet are unified within a set. You don't know? Yes, and
Yeah,
this is why, right?
that is
This
a
is why
meaningless concept.
you just say, "Look, a cup is a cup." But that's not what someone like Bertrand Russell said when he destroyed the object and the subject of knowledge.
I don't
Not
even
Russell.
know
All
what
right,
you're
that's
talking
probably
about.
a good point to end it on there. We're going to go to the
Right,
next
right.
question here.
He's saying like, how do you ground all your facts and logic? And it's I can simply invoke a non-anthropomorphic
I don't-
source.
Right. So what would that be? First,
I don't
Amendment?
ground them in logic.
A
I
rock?
ground
Something
them in
that makes
observation.
universe, but it
So,
doesn't
Rob,
possess
tell
any
me-
human
name-
perspectives.
Yeah, name it and claim it. That provides that things have
Yeah, so,
identity.
like, it just
and
makes
can I
universe.
finish my question? You behave like a child. Name it and claim it. That which dictates everything that's possible or impossible. That something has identity and identity over time. What
Yeah.
would that be?
I deny that things have identity over time.
Then
Yeah, the
intelligibility
non-
is
But this is
destroyed
another
on your time,
debate.
right.
If you want
So
to
then it's
put
not a
together
cup?
and engage,
The,
if
It's
you
not
want
a
to get,
cup?
so I've actually
It's not a cup, Ron?
I've written
the
extensively.
non-anthropomorphic source.
I've
not
written
a
a
cup?
long series of blog posts about this. So
Right.
this is not something that
Sound
I'm
like
going to be
you-
able to
sound
answer
like
in
you know
30
what you're talking
seconds.
All right.
If you want to know, go read I've written a series of blog posts on seeking God in science, and there is a specific entry in there. I think it's number 3 or 4. The title is chairness, because that's the where I first encountered
An
this.
abstract category.
Yeah.
right?
So
Right, okay.
I address all this, and I'm happy
Right.
to go get into the weeds with you
Is this
on
a cup
this.
at T1
But
and
it's not
T2?
something we're going to be able to do in 30 seconds.
Is this a cup at T1 and T2?
Sam, that's a
Yes.
coffee cup fallacy is what the
Right.
chat's saying.
So,
So we're
yeah.
going to move on.
Fair enough.
Appreciate
might
you
be.
guys' spirited input. And I just want to remind the chat, we are in the Q&A, so this is not going to be as cut and dry as where I'm going to have to cut in and cut everybody off and, say we're doing timed responses. I'm just going to kind of let it go for a little bit. And when it's going on too long and I'm running out of time to ask the next question, we're just going to move on. But I want to give people chances to make their points. But like Ron said, sometimes points are going to take a lot longer. Next one here is from Even Lord again. He says, do you think the Animal Planet channel damaged people's belief in evolution when they made and aired their Mermaids and Last Dragon pseudo documentaries? And that's going to be for 1stAmender and Ron. Go ahead, you guys.
I don't know if it was specifically those documentaries, but I'll be honest. I think that when we have removed scientific research and instead put in place internet podcasts and entertainment, it has resulted in the dumbing down of society, as well as the rejection of higher science and learning has also resulted in, there's also the teaching to the test and the fact that we don't, that we allowed cell phones and smartphones throughout
and
grade
frankly, YouTube debates, I'm sad to say.
It is sad. Yes, that too.
But you believe you're related to a dung beetle, and you call that science.
And a
You
walking
share a
stick.
common
right?
ancestor, a
That-
very
that's
distant
funny.
common ancestor over the course
Yeah, that's
of
your
hundreds of
assertion.
millions
and
of
your-
years.
that
It's
sounds
not,
like-
Hey, that's
you're
your
not
story and
related
fairy
to
tale.
dung
Hey,
beetle,
listen, Amender, you
right? Like
behave like a
you don't
child,
possess a
right?
vertebrate, right?
And you're
But you,
evolving back into a child before our eyes. Maybe you guys are right.
I mean, I'm
We're
just
going the wrong
explaining
way.
to you the reality.
Yeah,
You
let's
He,
just
not-
he's
don't
just
like
very
the answer.
excited. He gets the chance to get
Yeah, I
refuted.
do get
for
very
3 hours.
excited,
Remember-
but I've
So
explained it.
I wanted to
and you just
reiterate
don't
something
like the
because
answer.
they're
Yeah,
because
he
I'll
wants
I'll
to-
just
Very
ask
clear
Mike.
answer.
I'll just ask when I'm allowed to talk, since
Yeah,
First
just
Amendment
let us
can't
know when you're
control
done.
himself. You see
Yeah,
what I
no
mean?
That's
self-control.
correct.
He's
I
a- he's
cannot
a
control
crash out.
myself.
He's a
You guys are
crash out.
clowns. You guys
Yeah,
are
he needs to
Okay.
walking,
All right.
talking
Been there, buddy.
clowns.
So you just
I'm
you
glad-
just let us
Side
know when
freak
we have
shows
permission
that
to
nobody
respond.
cares about.
All right, First Amender, I'm letting everyone answer that question. So it's time for these two to get it out real quick, and we're going to move right on.
The hard alcohol's kicking in, folks.
Well, it's been kicking in all day,
Yeah,
probably all
been
week,
drinking
really.
since morning.
So you'd have to be drunk to believe you're related to grass and ladybugs. So
That's
at least the
fact.
person who came up with that.
Yeah, that
So
again is
it's
not
fun.
the
Oh, it's just,
argument.
he can't control himself.
No, so- well,
Put the
hey.
bottle down. I get it. You're excited. You believe that life came from non-living chemicals in some warm pond billions of years ago. It's very
I
cute.
will-
But notice
not the
how
argument.
see, he
All
can't
right.
control
Okay, yeah,
himself.
dude,
See,
don't
he's very
unmute
insecure.
yourself
He's not
when
confident.
because I just want him to hurry up and say what he wants to say so we can move on. And Donnie, if you could keep
Yeah, we do got to let the
the
Christian nationalists talk. Go ahead.
Donnie, keep the
Well,
pointed
I'm just
insults
proving
to
that
a
he can't
little bit-
control himself.
a little bit lower there so he doesn't feel motivated to respond every 2 seconds to you. That way
I'll
we
treat
can
him like
just-
a child.
We can just get
I'll treat him like
your
I get it.
answer
I don't want to
the
trigger him.
question.
I don't want to trigger the
There's
little
going to be
child.
plenty of
So-
time for triggers later in these other questions, but yeah, you don't need to go over the line to do it on your own there.
Okay, so Ron and First Amender, the documentaries and this and that, or getting people away from hard science. Good. No, it's just assertion and claim after assertion and claim that it's evolutionary theory or naturalistic origins that is good science. Just one point, and maybe they can address it later, that wasn't addressed the whole debate. What about the origin of these mutually interdependent systems? What came first, DNA or DNA repair enzymes? Because the information for the DNA repair enzymes is in the DNA, but you need the DNA repair enzymes to actually fix all these DNA breaks, or else we'd go extinct after a few generations. Only the creation model can best account for mutually interdependent systems. That's real science. Evolution's not real science.
Like ATP. There's a few.
Oh, we're just giving them one. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could go for 10. You can give them the last word because I'd like to see their answer to that.
I mean, the answer is simple. We simply don't know. We don't posit a God hypothesis when we don't
Thank
know.
you.
Wait,
That
Just
argument is
concession
valid.
after concession. Sam, did you
Okay,
think this
okay,
debate would be this
no, it's
easy?
not an
Let them
argument.
respond. You don't
Naturalism.
need to.
He doesn't
that
know.
argument is analogous to saying that because we don't know what Julius Caesar had for breakfast the day he crossed the Rubicon, that Julius Caesar must not have existed.
So it's
Ron,
pseudoscience,
whoever told you
right?
that was a good response, go get your
Yeah.
money back. They lied to you.
It's not falsifiable according to Ron.
All right, we're
So
going
that's
to the
what I
next
said.
question. We're going to the next
Pseudoscience.
These
question.
all the
atheists
way.
deny science. They're not even interested
These guys
in
are
these,
so
these
pathetic.
mega questions about
Yeah, well,
origins.
you guys need to do better.
Just for the record,
For
I
real.
came up with that one myself, so thank you very much. But
All righty. Everyone's muted. Going to the next question. You can unmute. Whoever unmutes first to actually answer the question and not just insult their opponent, we'll get that time. Like I said, there's going to be plenty of other things in here that's going to make you guys probably go back and forth. Kevin Blackwell Welder sends 10. He says, for first, so this is specifically, he says, showing that genes mutate doesn't mean that they mutate at the rate you claim. What specific species has been observed to be able to fixate an average of 44 mutations per generation? He said specific species, I guess, is the...
Yeah, so this is where it gets
clarifying.
into some really complex statistics and careful analysis and looking at genomic sequences. It's not as simple as, like, I tried to answer it in 3 paragraphs, when in reality, like, this requires like a full genomic sequencing course lecture where you have to already understand like some pretty complex statistics to understand. And so I can't adequately answer it to you without like a 2-hour lecture to explain it. I hope that, I'm sorry, I understand that that's not a satisfying answer, but that's the reality. This is you're asking a very complex question, and it is answered. It's just, it's hidden in some pretty complex math.
My turn.
So trust
My
me,
turn.
bro.
Yeah, I want to say
Trust me,
this.
bro.
One at a time. One at a time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So here,
Donnie.
my turn. First Amendment, and try to contain yourself. I didn't interrupt you. First Amender, rather than just answering the question, he spent 1 minute explaining why he can't answer the question. So instead of just forgetting about to use that minute to answer it the best he wasted the whole minute to explain why he doesn't have an answer. We've shown in this debate, past debates, presentations, articles, we've gone through all the literature on mitochondrial DNA, Y chromosome mutation rates, showing from Parsons and Howell, okay, up to all these different papers with the Y chromosome showing that it's looking at the supplementary material, 1 to 3 per generation, showing the overall diversity, going through the phylogenetics, showing that the rate combined with the diversity means that the Y chromosome and the mitochondrial DNA are young. Fixation,
No, you
the
haven't.
time it takes for these mutations to get stuck in place, that's another major problem for the evolutionist position, because they believe in the out of Africa theory, where fixation rates were actually a lot faster in the past, which means the Fatuma, he points out that the nearly neutral mutation rate approximates the fixation rate. So guess this is the last thing I'll say. Your observed rate's fast, your fixation rate is fast. There's no hope for evolution.
If you wanted specifically the statistical model, it's called coalescent modeling. You can look it up yourself. I apologize.
What is
I can't-
coalescent model?
But
you
it's
haven't
a
shown the
mathematical
things
model.
No,
that you
what's
claim
the-
to have shown. You have not shown those things. You've waved a bunch of papers in the air and claimed that these papers show these things, but you haven't actually shown it. And that's because
That is showing it.
you can't, no, it's
That is
not.
actually showing. So he actually showed it, right?
Yeah, I
Thanks,
did,
Ron.
Ron.
Right.
And Ron,
No,
So he
that's not,
actually-
that's
Just
not what
save
showing
yourself-
something, that's not what
Right.
showing something looks like.
So no
Ron,
paper.
Ron, just
no
save
paper.
yourself the embarrassment. You already
Just
admitted you don't know the topic, so don't make assertions that we didn't show, because the things we showed, you admit you don't understand. So how do you know if we showed it or
Yeah,
not?
I mean, if you wanted specifically the model, it's coalescent theory.
Yeah, I already explained. Oh no, Mike, I gotta ask him.
Google it.
I explained twice why coalescence doesn't work. 2 questions. What is coalescence? Secondly, reiterate my argument why it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I mean, it's a model of how.
What is it
alleles-
though?
I'm explaining it.
Yeah, it's a
Coalescence
model.
theory-
What's the definition of it?
Yeah, it's how alleles are sampled from a population which may have originated from a common ancestors. The simplest in a simple case, you could have example where coalescence theory assumes
We get it. You
zero
defined it. You don't need a
recombination.
lecture. Reiterate why I said that doesn't work. Go ahead.
There is no way that I could
Yeah,
explain
you weren't
this.
listening.
You're
You
interrupting
clown.
every
You weren't
moment.
listening.
You're
You
the
believe
clown.
you're
You're the
related to
one
Ladybug.
interrupting
You're
me
not responding to anything
at every
we said.
second, and you're asking for explanation. And as soon as
Reiterate
it's
even if you don't, maybe you don't agree
if
with
it's
it.
longer than like a TikTok feed, you then get upset and then say
Because you're not answering the
explaining.
question.
Yeah,
I
because
asked
I'm
you,
trying to
what was
answer
my
it, and
response?
you won't listen. I don't know
What
to
was
tell
my
you.
response?
You're
What was
an
my
idiot.
response to
Don't
your
be a
claim about
clown.
coalescence? You're a crash out.
Yep,
What
I'm
was
crashing
my
out. You're an idiot. Yep.
What was my
Okay.
response? And notice he has no answer. Mike, all I'm asking him, even if he disagrees with my argument, he said coalescence earlier. I responded twice in my closing and the discussion why coalescence doesn't work. I'm asking him to reiterate my argument and then refute it.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not
think
saying
I
he
don't
has
think
to
we're gonna
agree
get to
with
that
me.
in the super chats. Unfortunately, maybe we can get another debate going if he's
He got raptured, I think.
he's good. But we got some more here. I'll circle back to a couple of Kevin Blackwell welders here in a second because he is dominating the super chats, and I do want to give maybe everyone a chance to get some questions asked before someone has to dip. The Brandalorian for 5. That's a cool screen name. How do species know it's time to evolve if we did evolve? How can species just make themselves evolve? The Brandalorian wants to know. I do believe that's going to be for the Evo guys to answer first. So Ron, if you want to take point
You
on this
think?
one. Yeah.
Well,
Just in case there was some audience members who were like, who's going first?
The question assumes facts not in evidence, as a lawyer would put it. Species don't know when to evolve. Evolution is just something that happens. It's kind of like asking, how does water know when it's time to start flowing downhill?
Yeah.
Living things reproduce. They make copies of themselves. The copies that are better at making copies make more copies. And over time, it turns out that there are lots of different ways to be better at making copies of yourself in different kinds of environments. And so life diversifies and specializes for being good at making copies in all the different varieties of environments that exist here on Earth. And over time, the result is what you see. It's not like the members of the species sit down around a conference table and says, "Oh, I think we'd better start evolving now." That's just not how it works.
So the problem with, unless 1stAmender may want to respond.
Yeah, it was a
he's-
question for you guys first. So if you wanted to get in on it too.
No, Ron
Okay.
is correct. That question presumes an anthropomorphic pathway, as in that there is like a commander that is commanding the evolution, but evolution relies on mutation and natural selection, not an anthropomorphic source. And so that's the problem with your question.
Okay, I'll respond. So the problem with these claim mechanisms anyways is, as we've shown throughout the program or debate here tonight, is the vast majority of mutations are deleterious. They're nearly neutral. Why? Well, as I've shown right from the conventional literature, that the vast majority of DNA is functional, it's active. ENCODE and subsequent projects revealed that over 80% of the genome is biochemically active. We understand there's functions for ERVs, pseudogenes, all kinds of genetic markers. So that means these mutations in autosomal nuclear DNA, the mutation rate is 100 new mutations per person per generation. They're accumulating, they're unselectable, selection can't see them, and so they're degenerative. That means selection is limited. Mutations won't take single-celled like ancestors into whales and chimpanzees and humans over time. So these claim mechanisms, it's not science. The science is against this idea of common descent and large-scale evolutionary change. That's a minute.
Awesome. Sam, last words. Are you cool with me go to the next question?
No, that's why I showed
How many-
up with Donnie.
How many questions do we have?
Good. I mean, how much do you have left in the bottle?
I mean, I have to go to bed. I have work in the morning.
Gotcha. That's why we started it
He's
earlier, right?
tapped out. But think about it. 3 hours of not being able to answer questions and objections. That would be exhausting.
All right. Well,
Hey,
we'll
and
shoot
First
through.
Amendment
Answered
clearly
every
needs a
single
nap.
I think we have time to hit
clearly
all
needs
the
a nap.
questions.
And
unless
I have an 8
chat
to 5.
trolls
I
me.
don't have. I can't. I don't make enough money off of my YouTube channel.
You're related to grass.
It's almost over, buddy.
All right. It's all. Yeah. We're gonna pull
I
these
have a
last
hard
couple
cutoff
questions.
at 11.
All right. Kevin, I'm going to get back to a couple of yours, but we're going to say don't slay thy broski's chat here real quick. Get it out of the way because no one necessarily needs to respond. It's $2. He says Matt Dillahunty sucks. All right. Justin O'Dizzle for 5 says this the same Dr. Ron that worked for NASA his entire career? Thank God for
What?
SpaceX.
Is that true, Ron?
Wait, Ron.
Not my entire career, no, just the first half of it.
Wait, can I? So, Ron.
Wow.
So, Robert Jastrow says that the supernatural is objectively proven because of the laws of nature that govern the physical world.
Robert
So,
Jastrow is wrong.
what would you? What's that?
Robert Jastrow is wrong.
So, what would it be then that dictates anything that's possible or impossible?
The laws of physics.
When you say the laws of physics, are you invoking something that's semantic, or are you invoking something that stands in a cause and effect relationship with the physical world?
The latter.
Then what would that be? What imposes those?
Nature.
Nature's an abstraction. Abstractions
So?
don't stand in a cause and effect relationship. So what would it be?
Nature is not an abstraction.
Yeah,
Nature
unless you're Ramones.
is a real thing,
No.
as evidenced by the fact that you and I are sitting here
No,
having
Ron.
this conversation.
No, Ron, nature is a category that consists of the things within the category that are real.
It's
Okay,
the same
nature is
dumb
an
precept
abstract
point.
set.
Can we move
Settle
forward?
down. Settle down, bud.
Nature,
So I want to know. So yeah,
Same dumb
nature is
precept
an
point.
abstract, unless maybe you're a Hindu and you believe that all is one. In that case, then nature would be concrete.
Let me give this
So, Ron, I
another
wanna know
30
what-
to a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, and then we're going to move on. Because I
And
don't think
if you
know what
can't
this
answer
has to
the
do with the
question-
question exactly.
If you can't answer the question, then you can't defend.
I
your
can answer
evolutionary
that question. I
timeline.
can't do it in
Therefore,
30
you can't
seconds.
defend
Like I said,
some-
if you want to get together to talk about these philosophical issues, I am more than happy to get into the weeds with you on
Let's
this.
Just
do
give
it.
me an
It takes
answer.
But you
longer
gotta
than-
be.
it takes
I'll
longer than
moderate.
30
I'll
seconds.
moderate.
So you don't have anything you can invoke and defend real quick? Then that's another concept. We just won the debate again, because you can't say that evolutionary processes
Idiot.
have happened over a timeline if you can't tell me what provides for the uniformity of nature. That is a foundational precondition of science. So your whole evolutionary timeline, your whole Big Bang timeline was just wiped away before your eyes.
Sam.
So we just took the win.
Some people got a hard cut off here, so we're gonna shoot through a couple more of these. If you want to chill a little longer and go back and forth, you guys are welcome to. I'll cut it off around maybe 11:30 or a little after, so no worries. Or 10:30 my time, 11:30 Eastern. Okay, so 1313 Maryland says for 5, creation and evolution are psyops. We are all God. We always were and always will be. And that was brought to you by 1313 Maryland.
What's in my pocket then, God? If you're so omniscient.
Got her.
Some of that popcorn that you were eating earlier, Sam.
All right.
We're all God, bro. Just don't hurt me.
I guess
I don't know stuff.
we put a pin in that, so we'll go on. Scientific origins for 5 says whales are more similar genetically to hippos than any other animal. Whales are mammals. Game over, evolution deniers. The broken 2x4 destroys design. Or the broken TBX4. Sorry, I thought they were trying to shorten what they were saying because they only sent $5.
Hey, I think that's the first question directed at us first. So I guess we get to respond first.
True.
Whale evolution. As I said earlier, it's the differences that make all the difference. Okay. We would expect the nested hierarchical patterns in the same way that human engineers design in hierarchical patterns. We'd also expect God to do the same. So whales, by definition, would have to share some of their genes more in common with another creature. Okay, superficially, we look in the water and you got whales and sharks. And so automatically you might think, their physiology, their genetics, their organs, their structure must be more similar. But no, sharks are considered a fish for reasons, and you have whales are considered a mammal for reasons. Okay, this is the whole point of classification: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. The whale doesn't care how you categorize them, neither does the shark. But it's fun to look at their genes and classify them. So some genes are shared or similar with the hippo. Okay, that makes sense. Hippos are mammals. They have a physiology in many ways that is similar to the whales. Similarities are not going to help win the debate. It's the differences that make all the difference, and it's why 1stAmender, he didn't do a good job answering the discontinuities that we find in genetics. That's what helps creation better answer.
Explanation.
Bro,
I was so close to being done.
Right,
you just couldn't quite make it.
I know, I'm doing it to you. How's it feel?
Notice how you're the one doing the F-bombs, the name. I did name call you a little bit because it's fun, but you're a child. But I wanted to know, 1stAmender.
It's not fun for me, guys. It's not fun for me. All I'm saying. I just want to put that out there.
So
Mike,
here's the last thing I'll say.
Hasn't told you, you're doing great, Mike.
Mike, he did a great job.
I'm going to end the poll soon. So 1stAmender and Ron, guys, if y'all want to vote for your dude, don't let me win this. I put myself in there as a joke.
W for Mike, for sure.
Well, here's the last thing I'll say in our response. You can hand it to them or move on. I really want 1stAmender. I just want to see how strong his listening skills are. Again, what was my response twice in the discussion and then once in the closing in detail? What was my response to your coalescence claim?
My coalescence claim? It's referring to a...
No, what was my response to your coalescence claim?
I don't know if we're talking about the same thing when you're saying coalescence.
You're talking about
I'm referring to specifically coalescence modeling
in mitochondrial
DNA. A very specific statistical model, and we can go over that. But I don't know if you're talking about coalescence regarding mitochondrial DNA, or are you
mitochondrial DNA?
Okay, those are two different things.
Okay, so, I know chat's gonna say I'm saving 1stAmender from answering this, but I do know he has a hard cutoff, and there are more questions for the evolutionists. Okay. I'm sorry, Donnie.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Saved. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So
Saved by the bell.
Kevin Blackwell Welder says, read Vox for wait. Oh, dang it. Wrong one. For Evo side, Mutu Kimura's neutral theorem equation was mathematically shown to be incorrect. Nature refused to publish the study. Appeal to authority. Okay, that wasn't really a question, but it was for the Evo side.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to look at the specific study and why it would have been retracted. I don't know.
Can I respond to that?
All the studies off the top of my head.
Briefly, because I want to get to any other Evo ones before he has to go.
I mean, this is the problem when you try to make something like the consensus your authority or the peer review your highest authority, because there's numerous papers. In fact, I believe Harvard has a big study right now that shows that I believe 50% of the biological or the biology papers that have been published, the conclusions or results cannot be duplicated. There's papers all about the fraud and the peer review process. Like it's in shambles, but yeah, it is a problem because when a bad paper,
specialized knowledge that very few people have. That's all.
Can I finish, Junior? Is that okay with you? You got it. You can you do a little better? There are numerous papers. Let me know when you're done.
Lies to people.
Yeah. So anybody can go in and look.
1stAmender, the beginnings of your sentences continue to start in the middle of ours. You got to calm. You're the one who has.
Love to interrupt you.
You're the one who has a bedtime in 15 minutes. So let Sam finish.
Zero respect.
So anybody can go online and you can just type up.
Who just spouts lies.
What's wrong with this guy?
Sorry, bro.
Mike, if you don't put a stop to this, I'm out.
Like, this guy is not well.
Ron, don't take it personal, Ron. I don't know.
No, I'm not taking it personally. I have things to do. So
I get it. We got like 3 or 4 questions left.
10 seconds. So anybody can just go and search problems in the peer review, and they can see study after study after study. I'm not saying science isn't useful. I'm not saying that peer review is important. But what I am saying is that is a faulty foundation, a foundation of sand.
Okay, now you can unmute 1stAmender. You did that 3 times. We were having a mute war there.
It's just ridiculous.
Okay, this one is directed at you. I think it's probably the only one left that is directed specific. So we can just get this out of the way. JAMA R724 for £5. He says, a guest caller asked 1A if he believed he's a trans woman, and he said, quote, "It's a complicated journey. Forgive me for not taking this confused man seriously." JAMA R724 said that. So I don't know if he watches your streams, or do you have callers?
Yeah, I do. I take live callers. That's also a real. It's like you're talking about like a deeply personal thing that I'm dealing with, and it's
online publicly though. That's
okay. We'll just move on. We'll just move on.
You can't answer a question without an F-bomb. Like, we'd like to re-upload this to our Christian channels, and it's just F-bomb after F-bomb. Like, grow up, act like a professional, put the bottle away. So you're going to go to work hungover?
I was just explaining it. And you guys were just interrupting.
We'll just move on. I agree. Personal stuff.
Well, no, the only reason I asked it is because it was public when it was asked and answered. So this is just why.
Things public.
It's just a fucked up thing to bring.
Dude, enough with the F-bombs, okay?
Yeah.
It's immature.
So
all right. Well, next we'll just we'll move on.
Can I just say something really quick? I want to respond to that.
Very brief, okay.
Yeah, I just want to say it's an epic blunder for an unbeliever to make ethical statements of efficacy if you don't have an objective standard of morality. So on your worldview, if it were true, there would be nothing wrong with anyone doing anything. But like our foundation for science, you can borrow our ethical foundation to condemn certain things that you don't like. That's fine. We got you, bro, over here within Christianity. You're good.
There's no hate like Christian love.
Love
the transphobia.
There's no immaturity like 1stAmender believing he's related to grass and ladybugs.
Slogans and cliches, bud.
Just for the record, I also believe that I'm related to grass and ladybugs. So.
And you're a mature evolutionist. I appreciate that about you. You're a professional.
Just keep in mind that when you start slinging that around, you're talking to me.
Well, 1stAmender just said there's no Christian, there's no love or hate like Christian.
He's
not generalizing that one.
His behavior. I'm just saying that be careful when you start slinging your epithets, because you're directing those at me too, and I'm trying very hard to. Well,
there are exceptions to the rule, Ron. There are exceptions to the rule. You're one of the nice science denying.
So wait, Ron, are you not a nihilist? Do you think that you can, like the laws of nature, can you instantiate a ethical framework?
I am more than happy to get into the philosophical weeds with you. But
all right. Well, I'm going to call your show
on 3 hours now, and I have to go get some dinner. So this is not the time.
Ron has a podcast, Sam, you guys, and Ron needs some love on his podcast.
We're gonna do the shout outs here in just a second.
To come on my
let's not waste the last bit of time for the questions.
Come on, Ron.
Shout out to Ron.
We'll do the questions.
Shout out to Ron.
You'll do the shout outs.
Ron's a good sport.
All right. Okay, last couple are from Kevin Blackwell. I was trying to spread them out so that it wasn't just Kevin, which I appreciate you, Kevin. Absolutely. And I hope your welding's going well either way, whatever you believe, because you've been asking both sides stuff here. So we'll do a Kevin question, last non-Kevin. So he says, for Evo side, how many generations do you think have passed since CHLCA? How many years does it take to produce an entire new generation in humans? Or the Evo side goes. So one of you guys, if Ron, we haven't heard you answer too many first. So you want to do that?
I'm not sure I understood the question. How long does it take to produce a generation?
See, 1stAmender, did you get the question?
Are you referring to the chimpanzee last human common ancestor?
That would be it.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on the
Human generation is roughly 15 to 20 years. A chimp generation, I don't know. I have to look it up.
They're talking about what was like the last universal common ancestor
Between chimps and humans?
Yeah.
6 to 7 million years ago.
Yeah.
So
okay,
I don't know.
That's an answer.
6 million years divide by 20. That's how many generations.
Mike?
Hope you got the you want to do a quick response too, Sir Donny?
30 seconds. Look, boom, starting now.
Okay.
So the problem with that is you got to fix way too many differences. We've already discussed the Y chromosome, 70% difference, all that heterochromatin loss, got to explain those differences. Even between similar sequences of the human genome and the chimpanzee genome, there's differences in how those genes are regulated, how they're expressed. There's epigenetic differences. There's alternative splicing differences. Way too many differences to account for, even in 10 million years. That's 30 seconds. Boom.
Okay. Let's see. Got Kung Fu, or sorry, does anyone have anything else to say on that one? Okay, silence is
I
deafening.
concur.
Kung Fu J03 for 5 says they claim evolution is falsifiable because if you found a unicorn, that would be falsification for evolution. But a unicorn is unfalsifiable. Oops.
Yeah, I want to respond to that. So if evolution is true, then things like unicorns and talking snakes or donkeys or all of these cliches they repeat, they would have no reason to reject those because evolution creates every kind of weird thing that exists today, right? So on what grounds would you object to anything like that? What metaphysical
based
grounds?
on
Or epistemic
taxonomic
grounds?
classification? That's physically impossible. Like
Evolution produces
You don't
things
have. Ron gave up physics. You don't have physics. Remember?
What?
We have
Yeah, those are
physics.
the
I
laws.
invoke a
When did I- when
non-anthropomorphic
did I give
source,
up
and Ron
physics?
Garret
Yeah, those-
appeals to nature.
So first of all, because you couldn't tell me what it is that dictates anything that's possible or impossible.
I've
You
already
had nothing
explained
to
it. The
pretend to think.
non-anthropomorphic
Dude,
source that
He's,
makes
really
he's
need to settle
talking
down,
about
First
Dr.
Amender.
Ron, right?
because I'm just explaining
Like
it.
you literally act like a child. This is so
I'm not.
bad.
I'm not. You're just misrepresenting my point.
Kind of like.
Wait, Sam, could you clarify? Were you talking about Dr. Ron or 1stAmender specifically?
I was saying if their worldview is
Worldview.
true, where evolution creates all of this biodiversity, everything that exists, evolution created monkeys that talk. They think that's what they are. So why not something else? Okay. It could be that there are unicorn. By the way, a unicorn, if you look up in an old dictionary, it's right there. If you look up unicorn, it would be a bicorn, and a bicorn would have a reference to a unicorn. It's just a single horned rhinoceros. And you could look up, gosh, I forget where it is that they actually found a Siberian unicorn. Look it up. So it was actually a thing. Look up Siberian unicorn. So these are just slogans and cliches that these people who haven't actually done any lifting repeat. It's cute.
It's not that evolution couldn't produce an animal that looks like a horse that has a single horn growing out of its head.
There you go.
But as far as we know, it hasn't. But unicorn has the word unicorn has a lot of baggage associated
White
with
swan
it.
fallacy, right?
Yeah,
What?
this is the same problem of
swan
like the
fallacy.
God. This is the same problem of the God particle in the Adam and Eve, mitochondrial Eve.
Yeah, you're
You're
confused,
referring to a prehistoric
Which you haven't addressed
rhinoceros
yet,
that
First
roamed
Amendment.
in the Eurasian steppe. That's
Yeah,
a prehistoric rhinoceros. It is not a literal horse. It wouldn't be a horse with a horn on its head. Horses do not possess the taxonomic classification necessary for that to be possible. So you will never find a unicorn no matter where you go on planet Earth, even undiscovered areas.
So again,
Yes.
anyone can look it up. Just look up Siberian unicorn. That's all you have to do to show
That's a
how little this
prehistoric
guy does his
rhinoceros.
homework.
It's
As
literally
if it
just a
wasn't bad
prehistoric. I
enough.
just Googled it. It's a rhinoceros.
Yeah, there you go. So when we talk about a
So
unicorn,
not a unicorn.
there you go. That's a historical unicorn. Like it was
Think
kicked in.
fire-breathing dragon. No,
Right.
historically, before the word dinosaur was invented, dinosaurs were called dragons.
So like less than
The
200 years ago.
Siberian,
Yeah, because we
right?
didn't know what it
And
was.
there are animals with
Right.
giant horns that were called unicorns.
Okay.
So the point here is that Ron already conceded that evolution could have, and because evolution could have, you guys have no grounds. That was my argument to say that anything is possible or impossible. So that's just another blunder. So
Okay.
thanks for the
We
question.
have just a few
I
questions
didn't
left.
say that anything is possible.
What dictates what's possible, Ron?
We don't have time for that,
It has
Sam.
to
I
be reproductively
apologize.
fit.
I apologize. We
It
got
has
to
to be
move
able to
on.
reproduce.
Kevin Blackwell Welder for
That's the one
5.
criterion.
He has about 2 more questions, I believe. He said, for 1stAmender, how does recombination equal a fixation? Recombination passing down one lineage has nothing to do with a fixation across the entire species.
Recombination does not. I mean, you're talking about what, mutations that occur individually, or as opposed to like as a part of the entire human genome. I mean, these are different things. Recombination happens in all of this, and I don't know. I don't know what exactly you're referring
Yeah,
to.
For the benefit of the audience, because I'm not sure this was really made clear during the discussion, the Y chromosome is different because it's male only, and so it can't swap genetic material with the chromosome that it's paired with, and so the dynamics of how it evolves are different from all the other chromosomes, and that's the reason that it has diverged more from chimps than the other chromosomes. It's as simple
Very
as
good.
that.
Well, it's actually not.
Very
So,
good.
okay, here's a basic
Explained
question.
it.
Which
Great work.
lineage
He
lost?
understood it.
Okay, so are you saying that the lack of recombination is why the pan lineage, Ron, lost the entirety of its heterochromatic arm?
No, that is not what I said. You're
James,
putting
how many
Okay.
words in my
questions
mouth.
do we have? Because
That's
I
a
gotta get
massive
going.
difference.
I
So
have to go.
clearly
Yeah.
the lack of recombination in the Y chromosome is not an answer to the Y chromosome
Because one
challenge.
more just came in. So we'll do these last 2, and then we'll let you get out of here. All right, man?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
I'm out of
Appreciate
time.
your time. Okay. This one here is from Scientific Origins again, for 5. Thank you. He says AIG /all creationist sources are self-professed liars. If you actually think you're right, why do your sources have to lie and ignore /distort evidence?
Yes, that's exactly
Well, that's just,
what's
I'm pretty
happening,
sure
where
that's
he
a question
pretends
to
that
us.
it's a
Let them
Pretty sure
respond
that's a
first,
question
but-
to
and then
us.
This next one I think will be
Yeah.
towards you guys.
So evolution. It's funny because earlier, Ron, he was talking about answers in Genesis has a statement of faith. So do evolutionists. In the peer-reviewed journal, you could question some of the details, like with the Y chromosome paper or papers dealing with endogenous retroviruses that talk about their functional roles. They'll say, okay, well, maybe these are explained through co-option, or at the Y chromosome, maybe it's sperm competition, faster substitution rates. Okay, so they're questioning details, but they have a statement of faith. You're not going to publish a paper if you're trying to get it peer reviewed that just questions the idea that all life is related through common ancestry. Good luck with that.
You
Here's the thing I want to say.
if you
I'm
can
almost
back
done.
that up
Ron,
with evidence.
Ron, we've already backed it up with evidence for the last 3 hours.
No, you
I've
haven't.
shown directly from the conventional literature, data point after data point, confirming the biblical model of origins, mitochondrial DNA, the Y chromosome, mutually interdependent systems, you name it. My point is that comment makes an assertion, but can't refute any of the papers coming out of creationist journals or papers coming out of conventional journals written by young earth creationists like Dr. Rob Carter, like Dr. John Sanford. Okay. Young earth creationists publish really good data in the conventional literature, and we actually take that data and come to the logical conclusion. The logical conclusion is creation, not evolution.
Yeah. So So real quick, like it is said that
I have to go. Is there any
Socrates.
questions for me? I gotta go. I seriously needed to go several minutes ago.
Yeah, thanks, bud. It is said
Wait,
that
Sam, hold on. Let me just double check real quick if there's one more that is related to the evolution side specifically that I might have missed.
can I just hit that real quick?
Oh,
a quote.
right. Just go for it real quick.
Great.
I mean,
So,
like,
yeah,
I'm gonna cut you off though if I find it.
It is said that Socrates said, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser.
How many books did Socrates read?
How many books did Socrates read?
Sorry, right.
He didn't write.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
At least you wrote that.
So Kevin, Blackwell welder, bro, if you're a welder and not a biologist, maybe you missed your calling with these questions. He says, for Evo side, how do you explain 20 million fixation events in 450,000 generations, giving Haldane's fixation limit is 1 per every 300 generations for the CHLCA, which we just
I have not.
informed the
I would
audience.
have to look
No
up
idea.
the relevant.
Go-
I would have to
Go
look up
find
the
a
relevant
biologist and
literature.
ask them.
That's what I'm saying. This
Yeah.
guy might have missed his call in here.
Anyway, I gotta go. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
I do too. If
Wait,
there's, like,
one
last
question. You answered it actually, but I just want to let you know that Big Helen Anthus was interested in wondering. He said, 1stAmender, are you employed? You don't have to tell him what you do, but I just
Yes,
want to
I'm
acknowledge
employed.
that you answered it already, and I wanted to let him know that you
Yeah,
would.
I don't make any money on my YouTube channel. I well, very little. I make
There you
very
go,
little
Big
money on my
Helen.
YouTube
Helen,
channel,
just
so
go-
I do need to be employed.
Go
That's
super
why I
chat
have to
your
leave
boy.
it.
Shout out your channel real quick before you go, and then we'll get to the rest of the.
You guys can reach me at youtube.com/at 1stAmender, 1stAmender. I do debates all the time. I do a call-in show. If you guys like to have conversations, I'm more than happy to have it. We do better on one-on-one as opposed to, 2v2 nonsense, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Thank
don't
you.
think this worked very well.
Well, if you guys would have actually had answers to our arguments, it might have went a little better.
I don't think that was the problem.
You know, hey, you can make the excuses all you want. The debate resolution was, does genetics support creation or evolution? 1stAmender in his pre-show was like, oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, even his own side, Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal sent him an email. He read it out public, so I'm allowed to do this. Don't debate these guys because you got to know the subject see, even the evolutionist side knows when you come up, I'm talking about 1stAmender, when you debate informed creationists, this is the outcome. So yeah, he's going to say, oh, this was nonsense. Of course, he didn't have an answer to a single one of our arguments. It was either, I don't know.
Well, that's not true.
Okay. So what was his answer to the mitochondrial DNA diversity and mutation?
I can't recite his answer, but
how do you know he had an answer then?
Because I heard it. Not just
you
because
heard
I
it,
can't.
so what was
just
it?
because I can't
Well, we got
remember
it on camera.
and I didn't. Yeah,
Well,
it's all
report-
recorded. Go back and watch the
I
recording.
mean, people can
A
say
response
words.
isn't
People can
the
say
same
words.
as
It
an
doesn't mean
answer.
they actually answered the
Yeah.
question.
A response isn't the same as an answer. Like he can just jump up and say something. That doesn't mean that he actually.
I could flex on the camera all day. It doesn't mean that.
Whoa! Put those
refuted
guns
your
away,
argument.
bro. This
I
is
know,
that's
I'm
not
sorry, I don't wanna
TOS.
scare
You're
you
gonna take the
guys.
channel down. You show guns on YouTube, you'll get a channel taken down.
Just trying
All right,
to keep up with James Coons.
That's
You got your 30-inch bicep.
that's an uphill battle, bro. He's got that Avenger build.
Yeah, that's a battle you're never gonna win.
It's all the subway. It's just straight to the muscles like Popeye. Anyways, that's
Well,
amazing
gentlemen.
that you guys put in this much effort to make your points in whatever way you could. I'm going to wrap up the poll here. Appreciate y'all's time. We could start from the top and go down here the way it's oriented on YouTube and Zoom. I believe you guys would have the same orientation as me. I'm not sure, though. Ron's up at the top left-hand corner. Go ahead, shout out your blog. I know you got the podcast started. What was it called? In Lion's Den?
Yeah, my blog is blog.rongarret.info. Garret is spelled with 2 R's and 1 T. That's the key to finding me. I also recently started a YouTube podcasty sort of thing. So far, I have only 2 installments because I've had trouble finding people to come on as guests. I think maybe they're a little afraid of me. But both Don and Sam have offered to come on. So
I'll join you, Ron.
Maybe the well will be a little less dry in the future. Yeah, that's it.
All right, go ahead, Sam, if you got a channel or a website or anything you want to shout out here.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, I used to do stuff on an app called Clubhouse. It kind of took a turn for the worst. I am on
just
TikTok.
the audio app. It's like,
Yeah, well, I do stuff on TikTok now. You can find me at Redefine Living. You can just find me there, send me a message, and I'm happy to engage with anything that I've said here tonight. But I got to tell you, like, if you just send me some brain dead hate message, I'm probably not going to get back to you. But
let me delete
but
this
yeah, there
email
you
real
go. I mean,
quick.
what's-
Okay,
You're just
and
so easy to hate on, though, Sam.
this is his first time here,
Get
guys.
that.
Give him a break.
Hey, listen, if you expected my character to be perfect, then I'm
And
sorry.
it's
to
not
let you
it's
down.
not easy doing these. I'm nervous
Right.
before every debate we do, so I got to give Sam credit. You did
I need a savior just as much as everyone else,
yeah, amen.
All right.
All right, Donnie, go ahead, shout out your channel, please, and then we will.
Yes, so you can find us on YouTube. I wanted to say though, Ron Garret is a good sport. I've known him for years now. Moderated many of his debates back in the day, and so I appreciate him doing this, even if it gets passionate and heated from time.
I don't mind passionate and heated. I mind dysfunctional and pointless waste of time.
I'll hop in there and say
Dysfunctional
everybody
can
can control themselves.
Yes. So, okay. So I'm saying all that to say Sam and I at some point would love to join you on your podcast, just to give that a shout out. So, yes, you can find us on YouTube, Standing for Truth. Sam's my award-winning co-host, joins me for open mic debate challenges. We do those frequently on theology and science-related topics. You could also follow us on Facebook. That's probably our biggest platform. We just hit 114,000 followers there. You can find the website, standfortruthministries.com, articles, videos, debates, interviews, and more. So, Mike, I got to say, you did a great job tonight. Wasn't the easiest job
this is
for
a
you.
difficult one,
You
man.
killed it.
This was not smooth sailing as as maybe just going back and forth when a 1v1 could be. But 4 people is just going to be chaos no matter what sometimes, because you cannot predict when someone else is about to start talking, and it's obvious someone's going to want to talk at the same time as someone else in situations like this. But
I think we had a couple of incompatible personalities.
Perhaps. Had you ever talked to 1stAmender before this?
We've talked. I've never done a debate with him. So I kind of knew a little bit about what his style was.
To be fair, there's not a lot of 2v2 debates happening online.
Yeah,
in
I think
general.
there's a reason for that.
Well, it's just there's not a lot of platforms that would do it. It's usually just one-on-one or a huge
we do them
panel.
on my channel. We do them on my channel, and Mike, they're not the easiest to moderate. So they require. I've moderated lots of 2 versus 2, and so you did a good job. You did a good job.
But you got to let some people just kind of run with it too. I mean, like if you can't control yourself and that gets out of hand throughout the whole debate, which no one here specifically, I felt like, aggravated me to the point where I was ready to crash out personally. But it is a thing that could happen, and it's going to be always on the person who just can't listen, So I don't take any offense when people think I'm a bad moderator because I'm not controlling when someone else is deciding to talk. It's just...
Right.
I can only say it so many times. I try to
We're all
be
adults.
Professional and fair as possible. I feel like I stopped both of you guys many times, and you get what you get. Thank you guys for being here. Subscribe to Modern Day Debate if you are a new person to this channel. DebateCon 8 is an in-person conference. It's a lot harder to mute people in person, but they're also a lot more respectful generally. In person, because IRL, there's a little bit more consequences when it comes to like how you feel and what the other person, is going to react to. But that's really fun. If you've never been to an in-person, debate, it's not really like a college debate. It's a little bit more mature adults. There's some high tension theological stuff going on between interfaith groups, and there's going to be a lot of political ones at this one, I believe. So these guys are constantly doing this, just like you guys here. Sam, maybe this is your first time on the channel, but you probably do this on, Donnie's channel and stuff. So, I mean, it's a thing you're grinding. I did make a poll, Roberto Trabanino. It's over. But yeah, so these guys are top of the line. We try to pick them from the best, and it is 3-tiered, I believe, and if you can't make it, you can sign up as a member on our YouTube, and you will be able to watch it live stream day of. So thank you guys again. If you want, all 3 of you are welcome to upload clips in the video to your channel. And then chat, if you liked anyone specifically and you don't follow them, get out there. I'm Andy. You're gonna go ahead and take a time out because you're being mean, and this is a power I have. Goodbye. I think that's someone who just the entire time spamming. They hate me. Okay. Well, I should exercise that ban button a little more than I do. All right, guys. Anything y'all want to say before you head out? Anything coming up for you guys? Debates?
I'm done.
We're good. I had
I'm
a good
out.
time. A little bit tired now. I look forward to re-uploading it to our channel to get another premiere. We do have more debates coming up. Actually, Sam and I have another 2 versus 2.
Yeah,
next
tell us
month.
about it real quick before we play the outro.
Sam, we are debating, did Adam and Eve exist against
What?
Kentucky Atheist and who's the other one? Austin Sims, who I saw in the chat. That'll be a round 2 for Austin Sims. So
May God
got
have
something to
mercy on
look
their
forward
souls.
to next month. And then Ron,
Yep.
take as much time as you need on the mitochondrial DNA, read up on those papers. I'm happy to have another discussion with you on that. I think it'd be fun. But no,
Okay.
no pressure.
I'm happy to get into the weeds with that with you too, although biology is really not my thing, so I have a lot more catching up to do there. But the first thing I would do is ask you to make the list for biology, that because I want to see what I'm getting into here and what I need to tackle. Is it 10 things? Is it 100 things? Is it 1,000 things? Because if it's 1,000 things, then it's just hopeless, right? There's no way I'm going to be able to come up to speed on that.
Well, it's going to be a whole worldview, Ron. So we look at the data. And
Well,
the data
no,
is
I don't
data.
think so. But that's a philosophical point that I
Right.
am ready to get into the weeds with you on. But
Let's
not
do a
here,
round
not
2
now.
right now.
Foundation.
Ron versus Sam, worldview battle.
Roll it back. Hold on. Let me make a new overlay.
That foundation
kidding,
of
James
science
makes them.
Thumbnail.
is philosophical.
Awesome, Ron.
So-
Thanks for holding in
Okay.
there. I know you were this close to rage quitting again. I'm just kidding. You didn't rage quit the first time either, and I was proud of you then.
What was there a near rage quit? I must have
He's
missed
like,
that.
he's
What-
like, if we can't get
No.
through
What was
this,
that
Mike, if
for?
you don't put a stop to this, I'm out. So,
what debate
which
was
I
that?
respect, setting that boundary, bro. That was just this one tonight. You didn't hear that,
It wasn't
Donnie?
a rage quit. It was just turning into a waste of time. And
Oh, I thought you meant
It's
there
just
was
the
a rage
term.
quit in a.
It's the
I thought you
term.
meant there was a rage quit in a previous debate.
No. Jim,
I
Jim
know,
Bob and him
but-
were having a time.
That's good.
Go ahead, Ron.
Jim Bob, I rage quit on Jim Bob.
Oh, you did. Oh, so there was a previous rage quit. I got to go see that. Okay, I don't feel so bad. Well, you know, it's an honor. We got the full 3.5 hours almost, and Ron, you stayed the whole time. So to me, that's a success.
Okay, so I
appreciate
win.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah, you won that part
No
of the debate.
M3.999.
I lasted
I
the
don't think
15
I'm funny.
rounds.
I'm
I
just
count
having a
that as a
good
victory.
time, so that's why I smile. Awesome. All right.
All right.
You guys have a wonderful
later.
night.
Okay. God bless.
Here's
Thank
the
you for the good
outro
debate. We'll
music.
chat soon.
Chatters, thank you so much for being here. Y'all have a great night.